My middle name is Troll Lemur. Oh! One. Oh crap, they're going live. Alright, let's start. I hope this doesn't break my screen.
Season 4 is going to be the biggest update we have ever made to Diablo 4 since it has launched.
Our focus on Season 4 is to really make a lot of evergreen updates to the core systems of Diablo 4.
In Season 4, we're ramping the intensity across the seasonal and eternal realms through a collection of new activities aimed at ensuring the moment-to-moment gameplay experience is as exciting and rewarding when how it comes to Sanctuary.
Encoding overloaded.
Season 4 item changes are some of the biggest changes we've made to Diablo 4 thus far.
We've never done anything like this. We are fundamentally changing how you engage with items, how you upgrade them, and along the way solving a lot of things that we've seen continually from our community.
Yeah, you guys refresh the
stream.
stream.
Our pain points of our existing item system right now.
So in this new itemization system, we're focusing on narrowing down the scope of the base affixes. They're going to be a lot simpler, they're going to be fewer in number, so you can much more easily parse whether this item is useful for you, and if it is, then you can take it and further upgrade it and customize it to your own specific build.
Superlative count 14.
Tempering is a new system that allows you to really customize the gear that you find. In order to temper, you will need to go to the blacksmith and then choose the recipe that you wish to temper from, and then a random affix from that recipe will be attached onto your gear. Tempering recipes can be found from almost all of the content throughout Sanctuaries.
So you will actually be looking for tempering recipes that go directly with what you're envisioning. Maybe you're thinking, I'm going to play a Frost Sorceress. There are also going to be recipes that are more generic.
You guys should have the live stream up now.
Good for the Sorceress, but you'll be able to choose which one you think is going to be most powerful with the build you're making for your class. We're making a pretty radical change to the Codex of Power in this season, based again on the feedback that has been coming from our players.
Now, every single legendary in the game will be entered into your Codex of Power so that you can continually imprint the best possible version of that legendary onto your gear.
So going forward, there will no longer be carrying around all of these aspect crystals in your inventory. It's all going to be in the Codex of Power.
That's insane.
So part of the final system that we have is going to be greater affixes. What's a greater affix? Well, we want to keep it compelling that there are some drops that are even better than the others when you're trying to get the perfect build at endgame. Because of this, in World Tier 4, and only in World Tier 4, when an ancestral legendary item drops, there's a chance the affixes on it can roll as greater affixes. These will roll with bigger values that are normally available for that affix.
Greater affixes are fairly rare, but they're not impossible to find. While leveling up, you're going to be able to find upgrades much more easily with this new system.
Another part of itemization is going to be Masterworking. Now, this is something really intended for that very high end game, again, World Tier 4. This is where a player is going to take an item, already has the affixes that they want on it, but now they go through a process of upgrading those affixes, getting even higher values on them.
25%.
Masterworking really starts at level 100. Once you've already completed your build and found some of the best items, you're going to be able to test your build against the powerful enemies of the pit.
The pit is so fun.
The pit is a new endgame system that has been added in this season that is going to challenge players that feel that they have largely maximized their build.
By pushing into more difficult tiers of the pit, you're going to be able to unlock rarer crafting materials to masterwork your gear even further.
You're going to have to play some of the hardest content in the game, but once you do, if you're successful, you can go and make those affixes even stronger.
That's going to be a lot of fun for endgame.
In Season 4, we're ramping the intensity of the Helltides through the inclusion of a variety of new activities, the first of which is a doubling down and rise of the cultists' presence throughout the tide. You're going to be running through the Helltide, seeing the cultists just conjuring up swarms and swarms of demons, adding to that sense of manic and chaos that they're pretty well known for. The other archetype that we're adding is the presence of the Doomsayers, who were unfortunate enough to be caught out in the tide and basically just lost their minds to all of the mania going on around them. And lastly, rounding out the new activities are just the inclusion of the Iron Wolves. They're finally joining the fight. They could no longer stand on the sidelines, seeing the Hell Tides and Hell's forces intensify their assault on Sanctuary. As Season 4 players engage and progress through the Call of the Wolves seasonal activity, they'll earn honor with the Iron Wolves, unlocking access to a vast assortment of rewards to accompany and empower your Season 4 journeys. In the updated Helltide, for players who are able to stay alive long enough, they'll be paid a visit by the Hellborn, former heroes of Sanctuary who have aligned with the forces of Hell to attack the allies they once aligned with. Players who are able to take down the Hellborn will be acquiring the materials they need to engage with the new premier Helltide activity, the Accursed Rituals. Located in the Helltide, these Accursed Rituals are pretty much just botched rituals from the cultists that players will be kickstarting for themselves, drawing the attention of all the nearby Helltide monsters in this kind of all-out battle.
Yeah, Helltides and
One of my
World Tier 1
favorite
and 2,
things for these ambushes is the Hellworm. It's literally a giant hell slug beast that emerges from the ground and it spews out a whole bunch of mobs at you. If you're able to survive that, you'll be paid a visit from the Blood Maiden, our brand new Helltide mini-boss and one of the ultimate challenges in the new experience.
She sounds cool.
So I think I'm actually most excited about this season because of what you're able to do with your old characters, how they can integrate with this new item game and take them to new levels of power with this system.
I think that the best part of this update is that you're going to be really empowered to build the character that you want to play. You're going to be able to pick custom affixes and enhance your character in a lot of new and interesting ways.
Loot Reborn, y'all. I really like the way they articulated this in this video. It wasn't even that long of a video, but they made so many valuable points. I'm excited.
All right. We were just watching a video and everyone
just finger gunning the screen for no reason.
And everyone's like, what are you doing, Adam?
Yeah, okay.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another Diablo IV developer update live stream. My name is Adam Fletcher. I am the community director here for Diablo. I'm joined by this wonderful panel, plus an additional head, which we will call out. But
we only have 4 seats, so we have to swap people around.
We have to do the same thing we did during the PTR stream, which was like we swapped out like Joe Shelley and I put in Adam Jackson.
That's true. We did do that.
And so we're gonna play more magic tricks today. But do you guys want to do a quick intro to yourself to the wonderful Diablo community?
Sure. I'm Joe Pipora. I'm the associate game director for Diablo IV.
And I'm Adam Jackson, the lead live class designer for Diablo IV.
And we have a new face.
Hello. I'm Colin Feiner. I'm the lead live game designer.
Awesome. And then we're actually going to be joined by Derek.
Who are you?
Well, I already introduced myself. You just missed it because I'm
already screwing this up, everybody.
I know, terrible.
It's my first stream.
But we actually have Derek who will be joining us as well. Derek, you just saw in the video prior talking about Season 4. He'll be swapping in to talk a little bit more about Helltides later in this. But big stream here. We have Season 4 coming up. As you guys saw earlier this week, it is Loot Reborn for Season 4. And a lot of players actually got to experience it.
Am I the only one who
thinks
with
PTR.
new guy just woke up and got out of bed?
Diablo 4 PTR. It was a massive undertaking from the team here, but it was really, really great to have players jump in early, check out Season 4 and all the changes, and actually provide feedback.
He looks
so we
both
have a lot
sleepy
to cover
and
today
has bed
based
head.
off of feedback that we received from players from PTR itself. So, but Joe, I know you wanted to jump into kind of talking a little bit more about Season 4, how PTR went. Before
like there's an intentional bedhead look that's legit.
Okay,
but
so last time we were on stream, we were actually
can
talking
pull it
about a lot
off,
of the players going to get a chance to
but you got to make
check out
it
on the PTR.
somewhat
So we think that went really, really well. It was even just having the week of time for players to like just jump in and just crush through all of the content, check out all of the new features, and get a lot of feedback, find a lot of bugs on the way as well. Was again super valuable. It's been really, really great for the team. We'll take a lot of this feedback, look at the tuning variety of features, and really make sure that we've got the best version of the Season 4 experience ready when we get into the launch day. So in terms of like our big takeaways, first of all, really, really valuable across the board. Season 4, Season Loot Reborn was, as I mentioned during the PTR stream originally, was really our opportunity to go back and take a lot of the feedback in that we've been looking at since the launch of the game from 2023.
Oh, that
art
art
is so good.
I do love the key art for this. This key art for season 3 was awesome as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So looking back at the thanks for disrupting my flow.
I'm sorry. David art is amazing.
So looking back at the launch
today,
of the product in 2023, we've been getting a lot of really good feedback. You remember back in season 2, Season of Blood, we made a big change to like vulnerable damage and like the multiplicative damage that comes along with it. We made a change to the way the elemental resist worked.
Yep.
And there were a lot of things we had to do to make those changes like really shine through. There's like a lot of Paragon nodes that had to get updated. There were a lot of like legendary aspects that had to get changed. There was just a lot of itemization stuff in the background that we had to do to make those systems work better and lift up other things around them, like overpower, for example, to make that feel like it was in a better spot. So now that we're looking at like even when we were done that one big release for Season of Blood, we knew that there was a lot more that we wanted to do. Again, we've been thinking about. But there's a lot of work we need to do, like make sure that all of these things really all fit together cohesively. So, I mean, as people got a chance to see on the PTR, like the introduction of things like the tempering feature, which we're going to talk a little bit more in a minute. We get to like introduce these new like affixes into items, and affixes you can't get on items anymore. The reduction affix count on items overall, so it's a lot easier to go and sort through 25 pairs of gloves in your inventory at any given time, where you don't really have those same situations. We reduced the number of items that drop in the game experience overall, but made sure that the items that are dropping are just more valuable and more likely to be upgrades for you, or something you could kind of like build into an upgrade. We introduced the Masterworking feature, right? And Colin helped head a lot of these things up, right, working with the teams.
Wow.
So they introduced the Masterworking feature where players can continually upgrade items to increase the value of the affixes, and then at ranks 4 and 8 and 12, you get to like kind of crit on one of these and make them even better. There's a lot of things introduced. We added the new content type in the form of the Pit of the Artificer. It's like this new, extremely deep and deadly dungeon dive players get to go into once they get into the towards the end game, when you're getting to 85, 90 for your character level. You're starting to kind of dip into that space, and that's where you go to get your masterworking materials, which feels really, really good. And we learned a lot of really great lessons from like Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, because we think there was some really cool content there.
A lot of inspiration.
So there's some really, really fun things there.
And then also the Codex of Power updates. You no longer have to save all your legendaries all the time.
Codex of Power updates, which I was to be fair, I've been so excited about the Codex of Power updates. I've been teasing it for like 6 live streams. I feel like it's just not before BlizzCon. I feel like I teased it at the end of a live stream. So it is what it is. But again, super excited about the Codex of Power changes. That is very transformational. Like now, when Legendary drops on the ground for you, you just salvage it, you get that aspect, put it into your Codex, at the roll that you got, and you just get to use it in perpetuity. And we actually have some fun ways, we'll talk about later, how we're playing with that a little bit as we go. So, I mean, all of this stuff and more, we made huge changes to Helltide. I know Derek's we talked about in a little while, as he helped lead the team that did a lot of the work for that. And we got to introduce the season theme in the form of like Loot Reborn, and then the reintroduction of the Iron Wolves mercenaries the players be working with during the course of the release. I know that we showed a little bit of that off earlier. And I'm just really, really excited about the release overall, as this was an opportunity for us to work with like not just the season team, but also the live team, and like a lot of support from the systems groups. And there's a lot of things being done for the expansion that's coming out eventually as well, like Vessel of Hatred. So being able to like really organize teams and make sure that we're in a really, really good spot to like provide this really big update for the game has been very, very exciting. And the feedback, going back to the feedback from PTR was, again, really, really valuable. It was great to get players in there and to get those things taken care of.
Many people.
And we're going to talk about some of those things today. I know that some of this information has been like, we talked to like a few like press outlets, we talked to a few different people, and like some information is getting out there. But I want to make sure we can provide a little bit more detail, because I know this is the audience that wants to know like the real specifics. We're going to get into it, right? And we'll also have our Q&A as we usually do at the end, where we can answer some more questions the community might have as we kind of get through the whole thing. So yeah, I mean that was at a high level, that's what we're feeling about the PTR, feeling pretty good about it. I'm happy to like maybe jump into itemization, or how do we want to go?
Yeah, I think the first thing we probably want to talk about is like the itemization changes that are in season 4 that people experience, which includes like the tempering, the masterworking stuff that changed in season 4, and of course all the feedback that we got from both tempering, masterworking, and what we are planning on doing based off of that PTR feedback for the launch of season 4.
I cannot wait to hear what they're going to say.
Yeah, sure. So I guess just starting off then with like high-level itemization. Like let's go back to like some of the goals that we had when we started like down on this. Started some of the work for season 4. Now we want to make sure that first players were having an easier time comparing items in their inventory. It's actually one of the first things we started thinking about when we began discussing what we thought needed to change about itemization, because the experience in season 3 and season 2 and other seasons has really been like the player, you'll get into like the, you're running your high tier nightmare dungeons, you're getting lots of drops, you're sorting through all of this stuff. Like you'll have like items that are like, this is like a 904 eye power sword, and this is a 909 eye power sword. Now I've got like 6 helmets that all are like are have a wide variety of affixes on them. We really wanted to, again, just to quickly hit this, we wanted to make sure that we had a lower number of affixes overall that could roll on different item slots. But those affixes were more like generically useful and stuff that you could really build around, as opposed to having lots of really conditional affixes going back to like the the damage on Tuesdays joke. Like that's like,
the shirt that
we literally wearing it now. Huge proponent. It's always funny. So it's obviously because it's a joke, right? Oh, jokes are always funny. But the truth is, like, we want to make sure that
he is so much nerdy dad energy that it's ridiculous.
Be able to opt into them in a very specific way, So initially, want items that you're really dropping for you to have more generic utility, just more valuable for you overall, and also as a result of this, make it easier to compare those items. Yeah. So one of the changes that we made is we actually reduced the number of affixes that can naturally roll.
Dude, I vibe with this guy so much.
Now, like,
Pipiora. I love him. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I love him.
Yeah.
But then
he feels
later on,
so much
there's other systems you get to introduce. We'll talk about in a bit.
Emotionally healthier.
More of those. Yeah. And we did that. So
can he be our dad?
We also made all items post level 100 925.
Seriously?
So you're no longer comparing
can we email him?
The designer number that's like 904
awesome.
to 925.
Can you put in
you're
petition for
what's cool about
the
that
dad role?
Affixes.
Yeah, which is super important because there's a lot of situations where like if you're level 100, like Blood Harvest might be a lot of fun, but Blood Harvest is still dropping like eye power 900 items for you. And at that point, why would you want to keep even Blood Harvest, which players really love? Like, why would you want to keep engaging with it if you can't get really good endgame items format?
Yeah.
So now when you're like at level 100 and you're playing in Helltide, or if you're going through Nightmare Dungeons at like a regular, like a slightly lower tier, and you're fighting level 100 monsters or higher, you're always getting eye power 925 items. They might not have all exactly the stats or exactly the roles that you want, but you're always getting stuff you could actually potentially use.
Yeah, a lot of the things feel a lot better too, like gambling, right? Like now gambling is actually a really great source for targeting item slot.
Ooh. He opened his mouth. I like him now.
You go and you just churn through a whole bunch of these at once. They didn't have as much generic value. Now they're a lot better because you really can just like say, I am looking for a helmet. I am looking for a ring, and you can just go roll 10 eye power 925 rings in a row, and you have stuff to play with then at that point.
So there's value for gambling.
So
now.
Yeah, those were some of the high level changes we wanted to make with items with regards to like making it easier to compare these things. Codex hits a lot of the inventory concerns that we'd have. We made changes to gems in previous seasons. So you didn't have as many of them clogging up your inventory as well. So we thought that was really, really good stuff. But then we knew that we wanted to make sure that that it wasn't just about we weren't going to add another tier of eye power to items. That wasn't the way to make itemization more interesting for players and rewards more interesting. One of the core things that we really want to focus around was the idea that items have a journey. The best items have a journey, right? So when you get a really good item, it's about what the potential of that item is. What you can do with this item to make it really superior, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's sort of to jump into tempering. One of the first features we had in terms of taking your item on a journey was this idea that we wanted hundreds of different affixes, and each one spoke differently to a build. We wanted you to be able to play sort of whatever class fantasy or build fantasy you had in mind and manifest that through customization of your items. So we actually have some video, I think, of what the tempering feature looks like, and I can talk through some of the updates we've made from the PTR.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
So here you have, we're adding an offensive affix to the item. It's going to land on increased corpse explosion damage. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, especially if you really like corpse explosion. We've added a skip button so you can skip through the flow if you really want to blast through this. We also have a result screen now that shows you exactly what affix it landed on and what the roll range was. Right and then we have some more exciting affixes that you're going to see here. For example, chance to cast
this
Bone
shit makes
Spear
me
excited.
excited.
Twice,
Oh my god, the tempering. Oh, it's so sexy.
The balance bomb
Don't
dropped
say
in
it
your
like
lap.
Do you guys think they're gonna keep this? Or is this just seasonal?
Being able to,
I feel like they're gonna keep it. It's too.
Derek is here. So yeah, we did our swap. But Joe's still going to be here off screen. We just want to make sure that
look at the new
Derek
guy.
appears here. Derek is our lead seasons designer.
One thing I'm concerned about is
talking a little bit more about Helltides later. Sorry to interject. Okay.
A another
Go ahead.
massive layer
So
of
yeah,
RNG.
It could.
I am concerned.
So yeah, I think one of the really cool things about the tempering system in general is that like the manuals that we're introducing initially are just like the beginning of what we can do with tempering. It's opportunities to make like really weird and interesting new affixes to kind of throw at the player that we can introduce in seasons or in other updates. So it's something we can really extend and do some really neat stuff with.
Yeah, we absolutely plan to build on it in the future. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so a bunch of improvements to tempering overall.
And a lot of these, again, these improvements in tempering from the skip
We'll find a way
animations
to break
to
it
the
so it's gonna get
previews and
nerfed.
stuff like that players will see were based off of feedback
You
that we
guys
actually
growing
got
on me.
from PTR.
I
And
like
so, again, huge shout out to the community for providing all that
New
feedback
member of
for
the
us so
pack,
that we
I've
can
gotta-
actually get that in
gotta
before
ease in here.
the launch of Season 4. So, but with tempering, we also have
He looks
Masterworking,
incredibly young. He
which
looks
is
like he's 18 years old.
another new feature within Season 4 and permanently within Diablo 4 itself. So
He seems really
talk us
intelligent
through
with
a
what
little
he's
bit
written
about what
online.
Masterworking is, and of course the changes as well that we're going to be seeing based off of PTR feedback.
Sure, yeah. So, the next step in your item's journey is to really take it to new heights. You've customized it, you found some base affixes you're really into.
We're gonna get so attached
and
to
we
our
wanted
gear.
to
Oh
give
my
you a way
gosh.
to essentially take some of these affixes to new levels. So you think about helms and CDR or cooldown reduction, or for example, that chance to replicate,
He's
your
so
bone spear.
nervous.
We want you to be able to really juice those
He's
stats.
doing a
So
really good
I think we
job,
need
but
to
he's
give
really
you what
nervous.
that
You can
looks
tell.
like.
He's communicating.
Overall, what we've really done is taken a look at the feedback. We got a bunch of feedback that it was tedious to upgrade these over and over.
Yes. Oh my
so we've
gosh.
removed the animation from ranks 1 through 3. We've kept the critical, upgrade. We have the animation still there, but you can skip it.
Good.
Again, sort of in the spirit of blasting across everything that we do, so you can do that very quickly. And
Give us
another
speed.
piece of feedback that we got was that part of the masterworking process allows you to reset this. And why do you want to reset this? It's because you want to hit that specific affix you're looking for. You want to juice a specific affix. And sometimes you might miss, right? Which means you want to
I feel
reset
his
that
passion
item.
on this. Oh my goodness.
So part of the resetting sort of requires you to get lower tier materials. You're going to get these from the pit. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, we saw a bunch of feedback that it was really tedious to create like 1,000 caches and open up them. In
Oh my
10
gosh,
or
yes,
11
it
times.
takes like
It's
8
super
hours
annoying.
to open them
The town
all.
is lava. We
I
want to
hated
address
it.
that.
The town is
We've
lava.
added multiple scales of material conversion to those caches. This is a short-term solution. We have something in the future planned. It's just not ready yet. So, while it's not the perfect solution, it does get you there a little bit quicker. There's multiple conversion rates of materials, so you can turn, one legendary material into a much higher count of materials based on the tiers that we have in that crafting system. So, again, not the perfect solution. We have something coming in a future update.
Cool.
Awesome. So yeah, a lot of changes coming for Masterworking based off of feedback. Masterworking, of course, being a brand new, kind of that end tail of that item journey that you'll have even after tempering and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah.
I'll say another thing that was brought up as feedback was about veiled crystals, right? Didn't we reduce
Yeah.
the amount that you
Okay.
need
Yeah.
for crafting?
We did.
I
we
love
did,
the
and I can
idea
totally talk about
of
some of the stuff we've done just
customizing
overall on
equipment
itemization.
on
Yeah,
a
crystals
deeper
is one of
level.
those things.
Rather than
Yeah.
there
so
just being
I'll talk about
just a
first. I want
seasonal
to touch on rare and magic items. That was something
mercenary
we made
alone.
a change from.
Like we're
Yes.
getting a
Season
mercenary,
3 and
and
season
we're getting
4
more
legendary
power.
items
A
are
lot
just generally
more
straight
power.
up better than rare items now.
Yes.
And part of our goal there is really.
I have a
to
feeling they're going to
ensure that players aren't
transition
sifting
into
through
another
sand,
world
looking
tier
through thousands
this
of
season,
items. We wanna
maybe
just call
halfway
out,
through it,
legendary
or
items
at the
are
launch.
legendary. At the same
Yeah.
time, we acknowledge that, like
World Tier 5.
there is some coolness to
Yeah,
knowing
I've
that
heard a lot of
certain
people wanting that.
magic and rare items could have value to you, right? We don't have anything for season 4 yet.
I
but the
just
design
hope that
team
they
is
don't
definitely
add
talking
another
about ways that we
layer
can bring
of
this rarity back in a way that doesn't
item
diminish
quality.
our overall goal of trying to reduce that sort of sifting through sand feeling,
Yeah.
right? So in the meantime, they can be salvaged. They still have a use in the end game. But we heard a ton of feedback, to your point, Adam, on the veiled crystals. It's just like such a bottleneck, and it's like, God damn it, I have to pick a bunch of like yellow items up to do any of the cool crafting features. What the hell, Blizzard?
That's the actual player quote, too.
Yeah,
I'm
I hate
very
veiled
sure it
crystals.
was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
course it is.
That
what we've done
was
is we've made it
hilarious.
so that legendaries break down into equal amounts.
I
of
felt like
veiled
he just
crystals, so you can
connected to
not pick up
gamers
yellow items.
on a
It's
level
bonus
that
now.
none of them
We've
have
also
yet.
made
He
sacred
feels
and
like one
ancestral
of-
His
items
name is
break
New
down
Guy
into
for a while.
2
Okay.
and 3 amounts of
I think he's
salvage.
Colin.
So
Come on.
sacred
we
items
gotta
will
give
break down.
No,
into
he's New
double,
Guy for
ancestral
a
will
while
break down into
until
triple.
another
So we're
dev
effectively
stream.
tripling
He's
the
New
output
Guy
of a
this
lot of
time.
the salvage here.
And I know.
Yeah, he's a gamer
so
that joined the team,
One, that
maybe?
probably
Maybe?
the most vocal
I
feedback
mean,
that we get.
possibly,
Maybe
and
a little
that's
bit,
what I've been
yeah,
raving
but
about
they need
for a
more
year
veil
now.
crystals,
Is
so I know that there's changes coming for
developer
that in
teams
season 4
need
more
more
off that PTR
gamers
feedback.
that are just
Really?
really good
probably
at gaming
maybe the second,
and
maybe also the
understand the
first
map.
topmost,
Yes.
our largest feedback piece that we got is around greater affixes and
That's
the
right.
visibility related to those. So there are changes going into that for season 4. So
Yeah, yeah.
Colin, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we wanted, the dopamine. That was a big goal also of part of itemization, is just like seeing an item hit the ground and just being like, oh, I like that jackpot moment.
Yes,
So
he
it's
gets
really
it.
important.
He gets
So we
it.
actually
He
have
does.
some video here
He
to show
effing
of
gets
what
it,
that actually
dude.
looks like on the ground.
Yeah,
so you can
Colin,
see, here's
that
the
guy,
weirdly long
that guy.
named
I'm
item.
keeping
Colin, we love you. Colin.
We love you, Colin.
Yeah, right.
Unyielding commander's sacrificial sickle.
I know, right? So we have a 1 greater affix star. It'll go up to 3 or 4 if it's a unique item, which always feels incredible. So it shows up on the ground when it lands. And then if we can go to the next video, we actually have an indicator now when it is in the inventory.
Yeah, so you can see it.
Zoom.
Saturated
Enhanced.
Right.
I
Can
asked
we
for
go
this as a
further?
joke, and it looks so good. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I can't see like the pixels. It's not zoomed in.
Oh my gosh, this dude.
So that's been enormously helpful and really, when you kill like Duriel or one of these tormented bosses and they drop a ton of loot on the ground, to see some of these have stars on them, and it just is a feel great moment.
Yeah.
Kind of
and
goes with the whole like
Dopamine,
not
yes.
sicting through the sands. You clearly see
Yeah.
that icon. You know that has value to
We
you.
want to know what's valuable. That was
Exactly,
something that we
especially,
really
and
wanted to do.
again, even on the icon itself, like in your inventory, you'll immediately know those are my greater affix items. And long gone are the days of the Roman numeral. We
Right. You didn't like that? You didn't like
we
the
will.
designer
We
solution?
will. It's funny.
Right.
I think internally we knew like, oh, that's probably going to get changed.
Ooh, if they knew. They had a gut feeling.
But,
Oh, man, I wish they
I
tested
know.
it.
One thing I want to touch on real quick before I move on the itemization, if that's okay,
Yep.
is
He's so
we actually,
respectful.
to touch
Colin,
on
you
the gold
go.
crystals, I think players are going to want to know this, is
Dude, he's
we
amazing.
reduced the imprinting
get
cost of
t-shirts?
aspects quite a bit.
I
So
need
that's really going
Colin
to help the
t-shirts,
veiled
yes.
crystals as
Really
well. I
genius
think it
idea.
went from like
His
75
nervousness
veiled
has
crystals
decreased
to
by about
imprints on an
40% too.
ancestral armor to 16.
He's precious.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
huge.
pretty huge swing. You're just getting way more of your aspects on gear. It's a lot more flexible. So that
Yeah,
should
we
be-
really want people to feel like, and this is kind of the Codex of Power updates in general, which I'm
I have
really
a
pumped
feeling
about,
this guy is the
is we want you to
star
feel like you're able
of
to
fixing
re-imprint
Diablo
those
4.
aspects,
Like,
and
I'm
it's
just
something that
saying.
you're not
I think
having
it was
huge
a lot
costs
of it was
barriers to
this
doing it,
guy.
right? Because
Colin.
as you
put
upgrade
on
your
Twitter.
gear,
Could
that
we
should be
get
part of your
Colin
process, is like
t-shirts?
putting
We
on
love
your
that.
favorite affixes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
So,
Custom
why
Will
don't
you
we just come in
please?
with
I
temporary
want it.
Masterworking
I will get
optimization,
his face on a t-shirt.
and
Yes,
I know,
yes.
I will
do
wear
we
it
have any
every
other changes
effing
that you
wear.
wanted
I
to
am
come
not
in
kidding.
before
Colin
I
we
will
move
do
on
it.
to the next section?
Give me a
I know
hoodie.
Colin's got this novel in front of him. And he's
Yeah,
like, what am
yeah,
I
like
going to
He
do?
was a
ones
key
are
part of a
really
lot
good.
of our changes. Oh, one I think is worth mentioning, Colin, you may want to talk about, is the Masterworking. I remember we got a lot of feedback about the fail chance.
Oh, that's a
Oh
great
yeah, that's
point.
true. The
Yeah.
fail
Yeah.
chance we took.
About it, yeah.
Funny
Because we
enough,
made
that
some
was like
updates
probably the
recently.
biggest thing changed.
Yeah, that was a
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
big one.
Yeah,
We talked
that was
about a
the
lot.
first bullet, and I somehow missed it. Yeah. So we definitely felt like there's a ton of feedback that the double random chance was just a little bit too much, and we agreed. So we just took it out.
Yep.
It's just fun now. Just upgrade the item. We adjusted the material costs a bit, but the fail chance is no longer there.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
No more
Well,
fail
thank you,
chance.
Colin,
I
for
was
going
so
through those
mad when I
changes.
wasted
We'll
all
actually
Right?
get back to
materials.
Colin
I was-
here
ooh.
later because he still has more to talk about from his
Please keep
novel
talking, Colin.
papers that he has
Joe, you
here
wanna
that
swap?
he prepared. But we did want to jump into some of the class balance changes
Yes.
that are coming after PTR, of course, with season
Look at him doing
4,
his hands. He's
we
like,
have a lot of class balance changes.
Yeah.
that
Dude,
are on top
everyone's
of all
like
these
loving on
optimization
Colin
changes.
in chat.
And we got a
I
lot of
know.
They're
great
saying he's
feedback from
cooking
players,
and
so,
saying
just trying
he's
to
the
very
goat
much
and he's Chad.
Yes, let's run
Okay,
I love
this
that.
is the energy I've been
Classic
waiting
Adam
for.
Jackson slides.
Yes, I love my
From the
slides.
Diablo
Yeah,
community.
kind
You're
of
not
noticed
being
things that I'm
dicks. You're
talking about
celebrating
today.
the new guy
Again,
too.
thanks to
You're
everybody for
celebrating these
PTR. We
changes.
did get a
Thank
ton
you,
of feedback.
Diablo 4
I'm
community. You're
gonna
not
go
being
over the specifics
assholes.
of everything that changed.
I
but
love
I'll
it.
go over
I
kind of the
love it.
categories of things, just because there's
Coming
a whole
together.
lot of changes.
Chef
One of
Colin.
the first big
Okay.
ones was endgame
Yes.
survivability issues. So this is kind of talking about those people that went really far into the pit, and this is kind of something that's been happening on live as well that we wanted to address. And there's this phenomenon when you get really deep into the game and you're fighting high-level monsters where, you hit a point where the monsters are kind of easy and you're able to blow through with your really powerful builds,
And
and
then
then
one
you kind of
tap.
get to a point where they start one-shotting.
Hey, Alina, can we
And
like
it can be
get
kind of mysterious
a
and hard to
photograph
understand,
of
like, what's
Colin
going on, why did this
and
happen?
like
We've
Photoshop
also
a
had
chef
some
hat
issues
on it?
balancing that kind
Yes,
of top end
let me do that
survivability
right now.
when you get to these hard
And we
monsters
will
in the
sell
game.
them
One of the reasons for this is that variability in player defensiveness has been really high traditionally.
People will
This
buy
is
that
why
crap
when
if
you
we go
look at
to
the new
anime
items in the game
cons
in Season
Oh,
4,
or any kind of
you
con.
don't
They'll
see
buy it all
damage
day.
reduction very much at all.
All
It's a very
day.
premium stat now that's
I'll
really
charge
hard
50
to
bucks
get.
a shirt,
And
too.
it's
I'll
to
sell
help
100 of
solve
them
this
at one
problem
con.
of when someone is stacking all damage reduction versus someone who has none of it, their difference in
We'll
effective
do
health and
organic cotton,
survivability
too.
is
Yeah.
really, really
Organic
high.
cotton.
And so it makes it hard
That's
to balance
illegal, I
the
believe,
game.
Endo.
Another part that we wanted to hit was really armor.
We'll
that
find a
armor is kind
way.
of a really confusing
With
stat.
permission.
It's not really well
I'll do it
understood how
anyway.
it
I'll
works,
get
so
his
I'm gonna be going
permission,
over in
man.
a little bit
Yeah,
how it works
we'll
and what we're
ask him.
changing to kind of
Now,
address
if
both of these
I
issues a little bit.
Photoshop a hat onto it, it's
Next,
no longer
is
his
that some
original
stats
photo.
Get really
it's
high.
mine.
But it's
you
his
know, we added all
face.
these crazy awesome stats, and you can juice
I
them
got
with
the chef
Masterworking
hat.
and crit them
I'm
and all
gonna
these
type in it,
things.
let him cook.
And it allowed for some really crazy things on the PTR, which
Let
people
Colin
love to post
cook.
constantly at me. And to be clear, we like crazy things. You know, it's awesome
Can't
to
put a
get
mask
powerful and
on
have
him.
that fantasy. We do have to take into account things like combat clarity and computer performance to make sure that the game can still run very well for everybody. So we made some changes there to address that.
You mean it's not fun to just not see the screen or the ground?
I think it is
Oh
for a little
my
while.
God.
Like, it is hilarious, I think.
Yeah, it's funny for a bit, but when you can only see like patches of ground occasionally,
And when one
spot.
player
Yeah.
can do that, let alone when you get 4 of them in a group,
That's
I
true,
think
yeah.
it's great. And last but not least, balance changes and bug fixes. I'll be going over some of them, but there's way more than what I'm covering right now today. But just know, we took a lot of feedback on balance, a lot of feedback on bugs.
Oh,
and there were a lot of them that
man.
were reported, and
So
we
proud of
reacted
them.
on a
I'm
lot
so
of them. I'll give an
impressed with
example of some that we did.
This team. This
All
team,
right, so let's go
man.
into
Like,
armor.
they're
So,
recovering from
Brief
disasters.
history listener description of how armor works today. This is like when you log in, how armor is functioning.
I almost got the
It's
let
your
him
stat
cook
for physical
picture
damage
made.
mitigation. So you know how you have your elemental resistance that caps at 75
serious?
and then can get pushed up a little bit?
Yeah,
Armor
share it on their
reduces your
Twitter
physical
and be like,
resistance
can
up
we
to
get
a cap
shirts
of
like this?
85%. It
I'll
can't
make
go
them
higher than
myself
that,
if I
that's
have
the number.
permission.
But what's confusing is the amount of armor that you need to get to that 85% cap is actually based on the level of the monster that you're fighting. And I gave some examples here. These are the actual numbers in the game. So if you have a level 50 monster that's hitting you, whacking you, then you need 5,265 armor, and then you'll be at that 85% cap. But then at level 100, at every level,
There's
like
one guy
51,
trying to be
52,
negative. He's like,
53,
there's still
that
bugs,
number is going up
guys.
of what you need. And
The
then at
latest
level 100,
patches
it's
of
about,
disaster. No, it's not.
9,230.
No, it's not.
And then at level 150 monster, it gets close to 13,000.
Man, I don't know
right?
why people just
And
love
so
to sow
what this ends
cancer
up,
on the internet.
kind of creating is that the player really never knows when they're done with armor, right? That number can scale up forever. It's kind of a hidden system under the hood. So when you're fighting these monsters and they get way higher level than you as you scale into the pit or nightmare dungeons or whatever, you don't really know how much
have the
you
image
need.
saved.
And so
Can you
this is
send
kind of really contributing to that phenomenon where you're fine, you're at the cap, and then the higher level monsters just start one-shotting you. So in Season 4, a lot of it's going to be the same as Season 3. It's still going to be your source of physical damage mitigation. The cap
on
is still
Twitter
going
if
to
you
be
wanna see it.
85%. And you're still going to need escalating amounts of armor as the monster level gets higher. But what we're changing here, if we go forward a little bit, is that armor is now going to cap at that level 100 monster number. So that 9,230, you can write down this number. We're also going to later get into the tooltip. We couldn't get it in for the launch of Season 4, but we'll have it soon after. But it's kind of going to be like elemental resistance, where you get to this number, and then you're kind of done with the system, right? So armor is just another thing on your checkbox of things you want to do as far as defensive survivability. And once you get it, you're done. You can get it from gear, legendary aspects, and so on. Particularly in Season 4, I think this will be a little bit of an easy number to hit. We're not trying to make this
Yeah,
super
health is going to
difficult
be
or
the
hard
main
do.
way to survive,
It'll be
though.
very achievable for you when you're a level
And
100
overshields.
player. So here we have a zoom in on the tooltip so you can see
'Cause
this
that
player
amount of
has,
armor is
way
so
above
easy
that
to
9,000 amount of armor that they need. They have close to 16,000, but you can see there, that it's capped out at that 85% physical resistance. And again, soon after the launch of Season 4, we're going to actually put the cap that you need of the number that you're chasing, because we want you to know what the goal is that you're trying to hit.
So that means they have a lot of room for optimization, right?
Correct. Yeah. This
Sacrificing.
means that this
Yeah.
player can actually give up armor on some of their, tempering or item affixes and look for
Right.
other stats. Like that's kind of the
They're
point.
doing this smart. They're amazing.
So next, stat caps. So
Alright,
now that
I'm
we've
sending you
introduced
guys a
a
link
lot
to
of
my
ways
Twitter
to get
post
really
about
high amounts of
Colin
stats in the game,
t-shirts.
we want to kind of control for visual clarity. What a player can put onto their
75%
screen.
CDR.
So kind of
Oh
similar
my
to some
God,
caps
can
we
you
have already
imagine?
in the game, like attack speed or elemental resistance. We're putting some caps on cooldown reduction and the increased area size. You know, like, it's really fun to get those giant frost novas that cover the screen, but when it goes like 2 or 3 screens away,
Is it in
it can
disc?
get really noisy and messy. So we still want these stats to be really powerful and impactful,
Okay.
but just control a little bit the amount of insanity that they can bring. And one thing on this cooldown reduction cap, to be clear, this is not just CDR across the entire game. This is just capping what you can get from gear. So this is like the base cooldown reduction you get when you first cast a skill, what it's going to be. You can still get cooldown resets or additional cooldown effects from things like the skill tree or legendary powers that just reduce the cooldown of your skills as you do certain mechanics. This is just like the baseline cap that comes from your gear.
I think when we looked at the cap for area effect too, we tested it on
Alena,
Frost
you were
Nova
so
and
quick
we're,
on that.
pretty
That's huge
meticulous on
to
what
be
that
that
cap
quick.
should be, and it was
That's
still
big.
massive.
No, it's
100%.
huge.
That
Yeah,
will get some
but I say
interesting
like we're making a
attention, I
cap.
think.
You're still going to get to insanity when it comes to what's on your screen. It's still going to be awesome. So you can see here, this is just showing you what the tooltip looks like now. So we're going to be showing you, you know, as a player, what those caps are, so you know.
I've always
you know,
loved
when you're
Blizzard's
evaluating your gear on the tooltips,
community
what it is.
teams.
And then
Like,
same thing
I've
here,
had a
you
good
can see here,
experience
like
with them
the dust
personally.
level area effect size
We've
bonus,
had
it
fun.
caps at
It's been a long
100%.
time since we've had fun, but back
Next,
in
balance
Diablo
updates.
3 times,
So again, like I
the
mentioned
first couple
before,
of
we made a
years,
lot of balance changes based on
community
feedback. Again, thank you for
teams
playing and giving us all
interacted
that
with me
feedback.
quite a
I'm
lot.
gonna go over some of the things.
Yeah.
One of the bigger categories of things was,
Ooh.
again, like I mentioned, those changes due to combat readability and balancing player power. A few examples here of things that we're reducing are like the amount of dust levels that can be on your screen, and Fractured Winter Glass, one of my new favorite uniques we're bringing in. The amount of frozen orbs that could span the screen is going to be reduced a bit, so I want to prepare you all for that. Again, to be clear, you're still going to spawn a whole lot. It's just not going to be like insane amounts where you can't see things anymore. They're still going to be very powerful. I'm even going to show a video a little bit later of kind of the difference of PTR to what's going to ship in the game. Some other things though that we're doing.
build's getting nerfed
Fortify.
a little,
We wanted
Alena.
to increase the amount of damage reduction that you get. This is just Fortify
but that's
across the board,
mostly
the base
nerfing
mechanic.
the
That
people
DR
who are
is going from 10 to
focusing on frozen
15%.
orb damage.
And this was because before,
You're
when
not
it was at
necessarily
10%, we
doing
had to
that
take into account
completely.
that players could get damage reduction from a million different sources throughout the game.
Well,
Now that
we'll
it's
see.
more rare and more premium, we can actually make this mechanic in the game a little bit more impactful and feel like you're a tankier player for opting into this, these kinds of builds. We also made a lot of tempering affix updates. I'm not going to go into detail of them, but just know like what you saw in PTR and what's going to ship, you're going to see a lot of improvements, a lot of balance changes, even some shuffling around of the affixes to make them in ways that make more sense based on feedback. And then we did do some class changes as well. I'm only going to give very few examples here, but just know that there were quite a few. One is Druid players. You know, companion Druid players always harass me. They want that build to work, and I agree. It's really cool. So we increased their Druid, the health of Druid wolves by 200%, and we also
So they're going to be
reduced their respawn
invincible.
rate and cut it in half. So, you know, we got feedback basically that, you know, their companions were really good and fun and did damage, but in the late game they just kind of died and couldn't survive.
So despite that,
so we're doing this to kind of address that.
the
feedback.
companion druid was one of the top tier.
All right, so
clear
here's
builds.
dust devils as an example. So you can see on the left, this is just one
in the
barbarian
PTR.
by themselves.
Wow.
The amount of dust devils that they could produce.
He's like in the top 3.
And then on the right, you
Yeah.
can see
Look at
kind of the
this.
same barbarian. You can see like the dust
They
devils
needed
around
to
the
fix
areas
that.
where the
That was
enemies
so
are. They're still
chaotic.
getting hit by a ton of them.
Well,
but
I
it's not
like
covering
how
the
it's
entire screen,
directed
right?
now.
Especially when you get like
Yes,
3, 4,
it's not
many
just
players
chaos,
together.
it's
It
intentional
becomes
chaos.
insanity.
Yeah, especially when you're in a party of 4 barbs or
It's a little more
it's just like
focused.
everyone's
It
barb
actually
and
looks like
I
it
don't know
could
where I'm
be
walking.
Yeah, and other
more
classes do that kind of
damage
thing too, not just
focused.
Barb, but this was kind of a good example. So, you know, this is kind of
in
seeing the
a
difference
cone.
between PTR and
So
live.
like, it looks like
And
it
next we
might
have
be a
another
little more
class change, so
DPS.
Scoundrel's Kiss. This
on
is another
bosses.
one of our new uniques that rogue players gave us a lot of feedback on. So a quick summary of how this new unique works is it kind of changes your rapid fire skill from shooting straight.
I'm gonna
and
play
hitting a
3
single
different
enemy
classes at
into kind of
least.
a mortar skill. You shoot up into the air and
I'm
then
so
your arrows fall on the
tempted
ground and
to
explode.
run through on
It's really,
Druid
really
first
cool,
now,
but one of the pieces of
because
feedback
that
we
was
got
an
that
even
when you
further
launched the
buff to
arrows,
those
they
minions,
would
and
kind
you
of
know
go in
that's
a
what I
line, they
love.
wouldn't all hit
I
the
love
same enemy
minions.
anymore. So if you were
I
trying to
love
single target
active
damage, it could
minions,
actually be a nerf.
not passive
you, like,
minion
walk
builds.
right
And
up
they
to the
made
enemy and chop
Necromancer
them.
minions a little more
And while
passive
there was a way to
this
play
time.
around it, you
So
know,
we'll see.
players weren't really happy that like we transformed the skill so much that I went from a ranged skill to kind of a melee skill. So we made
How's
an
that
update
beer,
here.
Alena?
We have a video of the before and after.
Delicious.
But basically, you can see on the
Oh, you
PTR
love
on
it?
the left
Good.
here how, you know, it goes in a big line and then the player has to run right next to the target
Oh.
dummy to do the full damage to it.
It's sour
And on the
berry,
right
but it's
now,
not
you'll see
overwhelming.
basically you target where those arrows
Perfect.
are going to drop and they just all go to that area. So you can hit a single enemy, but you'll also hit all the enemies around it because the arrows explode. So it should be a lot more usable compared to before.
Can Scoundrel's Kiss ricochet with my rapid fire?
I'm pretty sure yes, it can. So it does all the things and inherits all the things that your rapid fire does.
That's
so
very cool.
It's
But
gonna be pretty
can
cool.
it double projectile?
I'm pretty sure it can, just like everything else. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's gonna be
Spam
OP.
everywhere.
Yes.
We love spam.
I think that's gonna be the meta.
And last but not least, bug fixes. Like I mentioned before, there were a whole lot of bug fixes reported to us. Thank you all for getting them. We addressed pretty much every single one that was reported. I'm giving some examples here, but again, we got a lot more than what I'm showing on the screen. One was
that
Drew's
Evan
Hurricane
Pierce
was
got
incorrectly
nerfed, we knew it
scaling
would.
damage basically infinitely, so we fixed that. Evan Piercer, the extra missiles from our new unique, they incorrectly had 100% lucky hit chance, which is proccing a lot of crazy stuff. And then Flame Weaver, another one of the new things we introduced to the game. It's basically an effect where you can put a firewall on the ground and then you shoot firebolts through it and it'll split the firebolts. Really cool fantasy. But what happened in the PTR was you could stack a bunch of firewalls right on top of each other and they would split the firebolts multiplicatively and add more and more, way more than intended. So you could fire a ridiculous number of firebolts which were crashing servers and things. So it wasn't great. But now we fixed that so it'll work properly. And again, we're still discovering and working on other fixes. There were a lot more that went in. If you reported it, it was very likely fixed. So basically, the build will be in a much better, stable state once we launch. And that's really due to all your feedback, so thanks again. And yeah,
Awesome.
that's my section. So.
A lot of changes coming to classes. Class balance feedback we got from PTR was really, really great. You know, we were able to make so many different changes there. Of course, some of the biggest ones like the readability stuff that we probably saw. Seen the initial videos of like the dust devils everywhere was crazy. Also being in a party with like I was playing PTR and being in a party with like two barbs and like another like necromancer. I was like, oh okay, like what's going on right now?
Yeah. PTR is one of those things you get to see things in development state. I will say these kinds of things are actually pretty common when we're developing anything. Is being able to create these crazy situations, and we have to fix it for the game before it goes live. So, that's kind of the advantage of PTR is players can find these things.
Exactly.
There's a lot more manpower being put into it.
PTR was super great for us to have, and thanks again to the community for the feedback on all the class balance changes, and thanks Adam for walking us through that.
I love his
The
gratitude
next thing we do want to talk about is with Derek over here. Derek is actually going to talk a little bit
let Derek
about, of
speak.
course, all the immense Helltide changes. Probably one of the most
Derek.
popular features and changes that we've introduced in Season 4 with PTR
Another
and
new
people
guy.
being able to experience it.
Yeah.
Of course, we got feedback based off of
He's got good hair.
players jumping into Helltide, and we do want to go through all that with Derek. And then we also want to talk a little bit about the season itself with Derek. So, Derek,
I will say Colin's hair
just a
has
few
gotten
things to cover.
sexier as far as I perceive,
as you mentioned,
as I've seen this
the
video.
players
He's
who
got a cool
joined us
vibe.
from the PTR or caught all the various like, blog and video posts and
Let me
whatnot.
listen.
Know that with Season 4, we're introducing permanent upgrades to the Helltide experience. Heavy focus on
Permanent.
improving
Okay.
and enhancing, I guess, monster density and activity variety. So there's ton
They get
more
GTA
things to do
stars
in the
and
Helltides,
Helltides.
and as a result, there's just ton more monsters to
So
mow
much chaos,
through
guys.
in the
It's gonna be
Helltides.
amazing.
There's also some explorations, and just to double back real quick, these are all permanent across both the seasonal and Eternal Realms, so they're not going away
Thank
once
you.
Season 4 ends. This is just how
It's
Helltide
part of the
works.
game.
Yep.
Kind of like our item updates too, right?
Yeah,
This
now and
is the
forever.
new world we live in.
Welcome
yeah.
in,
This
Tyler.
is Sanctuary. But there's also, if you kind of look at the top right of the screen, the threat system. So the
Okay,
longer
so
you
this
fight
guy's
in the
partly
Helltides,
responsible for
you're
this
going to
whole
be
system.
accumulating threat,
Yeah.
which
That's
just
awesome.
results in even
I think
more
this is a huge step in a
monsters
good
ambushing
direction
you
It
at higher
is.
for the game.
frequencies than monster packs. I think
It
the
made it way more
personal
chaotic
favorite, like
and
think like fan
immersive.
favorite,
Like I could actually
is the
focus
Hellworm.
on not
This
dying.
giant demon slug bug that just pops out from the ground and just vomits monsters all over you.
Just vomits monsters,
But,
yes.
kind of with all those, the seasons, as we
Hop
say a lot,
into
are
Dejo's
an amazing
stream
opportunity
and
for
ask him what his
experimentation.
thoughts are.
And sometimes the best results of those
I bet he's
experimentations are when they
excited.
can inspire permanent upgrades and just enhancements to the base game as a whole. So that's
he's
where
griped
the
about a lot of these
Hellborn
things,
and
so
the
seeing these
new Accursed
changes
Ritual and
is
Blood
very
Maiden come into
optimistic.
play as part of the new Helltide experience. Yeah,
Oh,
look at
that
this.
art.
Those look rad.
Yeah, so
So the Hellborn, as our Season 2 players might recall, we introduced the Bloodseekers. And those were really cool monsters
mask on
monsters
blood,
based
though.
on
Ooh.
class archetypes. So you're kind of like fighting vampiric shadow versions of yourself. And we take a look at that content, and we just love it from like the team perspective, and just find like, hey, we're upgrading the Helltides. This is a perfect piece of content to just include with it. So that's where the Hellborn came into play. You know, they're fallen heroes of Sanctuary. They've been overtaken by the corruption from hell and, you know, kind of turned against you. Kind of in line with that, the Accursed Ritual and the Blood Maiden. In Season 2, with the Bloodlures and the Bloodseekers, we introduced this concept of, I guess, calling it just like open world social boss summoning. We followed up with like the there's a buzz right there.
Yeah, it's very catchy.
Rolls right off the tongue. I love it.
Very catchy.
Again, to my designer speak sometimes, but and we followed that up with like the Malphite spawners in Season 3, and again, looking at these really successful experimentations from previous seasons, we love opportunities to bring players together and just add that extra layer to the Helltide experience. So that's where the Accursed Ritual comes into play. So as you're out fighting against the tides, you'll be collecting the new material, the Baneful Hearts, that you can bring to the Accursed Ritual. It takes 3 to summon up the Blood Maiden. And you can do this by yourself, or you can partner up with some buddies and all, I guess, contribute to the summoning together. And you know, the Blood Maiden itself is our new Helltide mini-boss, that she's immensely powerful, but also very, very lucrative. And I think the last thing I forgot to mention is that this is all expanding into World Tiers 1 and 2 as well. And kind of like a distilled, not diluted. So the Helltide in World Tier 1 and 2 is more specifically tuned to, you know, I guess like meet the leveling needs, or the needs of the leveling player.
Awesome. Oh, on the Blood Maiden, I remember you had talked about with me before that the people that summon the Blood Maiden actually get bonus loot drops, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either contribute just by yourself to the Blood Maiden and get some extra loot for, you know, your troubles. We want to, you know, make sure that we give you a little bit extra because you're sacrificing up your hearts. But also, every player that it doesn't stack, so you're not, you know, stressed to say, hey, I just need to be the one that summons them all. We can all party up and just deposit our own Baneful Hearts and, I guess, reap the benefits of that.
Yeah. Right. To be clear, so if you put in all 3, you get bonus loot, right?
Correct.
But like you, me, and Colin are in a group, and like I put in 2 and you put in 1, do I get more loot than you?
No. So you get the same amount of loot. So, you know, if Colin has a Baneful Heart to deposit, and if we all, you know, dump them in together, then we all get the shared benefits of that.
Got it.
But I will touch on a bit later the PTR updates and just some of the enhanced value that the Blood Maiden received since PTR for both contributors and non-contributors to the summon.
Awesome. Yeah, so a lot of new stuff coming in for Helltide, and this is all part of the stuff that players got to experience in the PTR. And of course, we got learnings from the PTR, as you just mentioned.
Many.
Do you want to walk us through some of the changes that are coming in with Helltide for all the PTR feedback that we had?
Yeah, I think I have a PowerPoint of my own.
Ooh.
See, there you go. Look at that.
He goes, ooh.
Yeah, so, you know, as mentioned, tons of sweeping changes going into the Helltides and just overall balance of the game in general at Season 4.
They made a lessons
and
page.
kind of with that, sometimes,
like
you know, we push a little bit too far in some regards. So we did get feedback and also just own internal kind of field checks on the Cinder drop rates were feeling a bit slow in the PTR. So we just went back, reviewed it, and gathered our feedback and just iterated on the drop percentage to hit closer to the expectations of how much we want to be collecting the cinders and interacting with the tortured gifts. So I think we're in a much better spot. I know we're in a much better spot right now, actually. So that was one of the first major pieces coming out from the PTR.
A lot more chests from this, yeah?
Yeah, chests, more loot, more fun.
Awesome.
Let's see, next one. Yeah, so on the topic of more is more fun, the Baneful Hearts, we were noticing that they were dropping a bit inconsistently. So you can get the Baneful Hearts from opening tortured gifts, killing the Hellborn, and one of the Doomsayer variants, one of our new activity types. But again, we want to get the Baneful Hearts in the hands of the players with a pretty, you know, steady cadence. So we noticed with the PTR that we're just not getting them as frequently as we wanted to. So we just went back, iterated, and kind of reviewed our bad luck protection to just ensure that we improve the consistency that Baneful Hearts are dropping. And this is all kind of like, the Blood Maiden is not meant to be seen as like this, you know, highly ambitious piece of content that you only engage with like once every 50 levels. We want you getting the hearts. We want you engaging with the social boss summoning mechanic. And, you know, I think it just adds that extra layer to the Helltides we want you to engage with. And on the topic of the Blood Maiden, overall, like we touched on earlier, the Blood Maiden is just seeing some overall rewards improvements. So as noticed, or as mentioned before, if you contribute to the summon of the Blood Maiden, you receive a bonus reward. But one of the things was that you couldn't really tell. There is a little icon that appears like where your buff bar, but the effects of that was largely unnoticed from both the team and actually just the PTR players themselves. So again, taking this opportunity to just review the overall value of the Blood Maiden for contributors and non-contributors alike, because again, we wanted to make sure that she has a clear role in the Helltide experience. So again, overall, Blood Maiden is just overall more valuable. With this, we're dropping things like legendaries, Forgotten Soul, lore Zermats, and a % chance for contributors at the end world tiers to get some end game boss materials as well.
Yeah, so this is now like an additional opportunity for players to get additional of the boss mats for the boss ladders. Which we've heard a lot about how players were like, hey, we only really have one kind of method to get them, and we wanted to expand that and bring that into more avenues so players didn't have to just kind of be like tunneled off into one area to get like, specific boss
Now we want to go brain dead.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life.
Yes.
I like that the contribution encourages you to actually use these. In Season 2, I'd just chain summon the boss over and over and over, and there would be this awkward dance where someone would show up, and it's like, I know you have
the waiting game. Like,
use your material.
Yeah, and that's why it's really also important that the nuance is honestly lost pretty frequently when we're talking about like drops for different kinds of creatures in different sorts of situations like this. Like Treasure Goblin, we talked about Treasure Goblin a while ago, a few seasons ago, and I remember I put a poll out on X.com.
So
at one point, basically, I put a poll out basically asking players what they believed the legendary drop rate of Treasure Goblins to be, and I had a whole bunch of options, and I think like 85% of the players were wrong. And because the drop rate at that time was 50%, players didn't feel it because they didn't see the Treasure Goblin enough to really notice that it was actually that high. So I think making sure that like we were like buffing up those moments where like if I have my contribution bonus a little bit higher, that helps make sure that is felt.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what's funny is Joe talking off screen and we're all looking off and people are just staring us stare into this random corner and stuff. You know what would be funny is we all just actually looked back there at Bale. We should play
every time.
Yeah, every time. And then like Joe's turned into Bale. Oh,
literally coming out of the corner.
That's awkward.
That wasn't part of the game.
I like the deep shadows.
That's where he is.
It's just lurking. Oh man.
I guess the moments when I decide to say something, maybe they'll occasionally become.
I was like, oh, we have another camera. Awesome. Cool. So a lot of Helltide changes that we have coming into.
Yeah, I think there's actually one more slide.
I'm pretty sure we have one more.
So one thing that we've kind of covered a lot across like just tempering and just the masterwork and just the spirit of Season 4 in general, just like removing friction points and just keeping players in the flow, the flow of fun.
People want to blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the Doomsayer variants, and again, like the Doomsayer's new activity type, is kind of like a Kinder Egg surprise where you interact with them, they crackle and pop into something, a variety of things actually. So one of the variants that we had was the Chest of Doomsaying, where they would explode into a tortured gift that costs 50 cinders and gives you a whole lot of good stuff. We're kind of reviewing that, and sometimes what can happen is you can encounter one of these at the very start of your Helltide run, and you don't have 50 cinders. It's not a lot to get, but it still is kind of a stressful, potentially feels bad moment. So
yeah, it's like,
we just
I'm
said,
gonna
hey,
leave
let's
and do
just
something
have it
else.
explode into the loot directly. You save 50 cinders, and you kind of just keep going on your merry way in the tides. So that's one of the kind of like efficiency smoothing outs that we've done. The next one is also just we're dumping a whole bunch of monsters on you, and it's always a feel bad moment when you get knocked out of an interaction. You're trying just to open a tortured gift and head out. So we reduced the channel time to open tortured gifts from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds, I believe, for Season 4 launch proper.
Nice.
That'll help a lot. So, and I think we'll address some feedback of like, why don't we just make it instant, right?
Right. Yeah, we kind of do want to safeguard against like the accidental clicks. Again, it's a frenetic game, so you're clicking a whole bunch, and I think 1.5 seconds is enough time to let you make sure that that's what you want to commit to before you open it.
And there's also like because you guys didn't talk about this, there's changes to like the channeling, like I think with like dot damage and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, dot damage now won't interrupt channeling as well, which I think is a pretty good,
which is good. So especially as you are in the frantic areas of Helltide and everything. So lots of Helltide changes, a lot of good feedback from players from PTR. Derek, thanks for walking through on that, but you're not done yet. We do more. Yeah, but wait,
there's more.
As you guys know, like this is Season 4 Loot Reborn, and part of Helltide includes the Iron Wolves, and some people have figured that out even before our blog on Tuesday. But we did want to talk a little bit about Season 4 and the Iron Wolves' participation in that, along
I wanna
with
know
some
more
cool
about the
things
Iron
that are
Wolves. Like,
specific
what is their
to seasonal
purpose?
characters for Season 4 as well.
Yeah. So again, as mentioned, the players who joined us in the PTR, or again caught all the various blog posts, will notice that the Iron Wolves are now a permanent part of the Helltides. You know, they're fighting and dying alongside the players
it's
now, and
Helltide
they're here to stay.
specific.
Here to stay.
However, for
Yes.
our
Okay.
seasonal players, we have the Call of the Wolves
I
seasonal
am
activity,
so
where
intrigued
players
by
will get
this.
to spend
Yeah,
There
yeah.
have
a
been
bit more
some
time with the
bullshit.
Iron Wolves and
This
go on a bit of a
posts.
journey with them to try and uncover the potential root cause behind
Saying
these
that this is
rising
just going to be a
tides
glorified
and
Eternal Realm. That's
uncover
bullshit.
this mysterious phenomenon
That's
threatening
shitting on
to
all of this
corrupt
effort
and
and
consume the
energy
Iron
and
Wolves from within.
genius.
In
Please
addition
talk
to
about
that,
the seasonal component.
again,
Let's see.
the Iron Wolves are in the Helltides with you. As players are fighting and dying alongside the Iron
I'm
Wolves
digging
in the
this guy
Helltides,
too.
you're
He's
also going to be
very
earning your way
passionate.
through
That's Devin,
the
yeah.
Wolves
He's
Honor
cool.
reputation system.
Yeah.
And this is seeing you progress your way through a
Oh,
collection
an
of just
honor system.
super juiced
Oh
rewards
my.
that are specifically tuned to
I love this nerdy
overpower
bastard.
your leveling journey
me a hug.
from level 1 to 100 and beyond. The main pillar for this reputation
Did they
track
brush
was really
up on the wolf
pushing the player's
graphics?
powers forward.
That wolf
the player power
looks
forward. There you go.
gorgeous.
The player's power forward.
Gorgeous, yeah.
And giving them early access to, gear with juice stats, legendaries, materials,
He
boss
said, "Hey, look,
materials,
Roman
and
numerals."
even a resplendent spark to as like a
God.
cherry on top at the end.
We love the
Did they
juice.
say they love the
You
Jews?
do love that. But in the spirit of wait, there's more.
Did I just
those
hear
are all
that?
like the
Didn't
gameplay
like
related things,
it,
but we
I
also have
don't
a couple
know.
really cool cosmetics.
I love the
that you
Jews
earn
too,
through
man.
the
Like the
collective Call of the Wolf
Jews or
seasonal
juice,
activity.
I don't know.
So
Right now, the
this is
Jews
the Iron
need
Wolf Mount
all of
trophy,
us
the
to
little Iron Wolf banner.
come together.
And a little bit fast, but yeah. So the Iron Wolf Mount
Oof.
trophy. We're doing it live here.
Whoa.
What's going
That's
on in
earned
Israel
from
right now?
completing the there it is. You can get both
Praying
of
for
them.
those
That's earned
guys,
through
that's
completing
rough.
the reputation track, and the
But did they
Blood
actually say,
Maiden
"I love the
head"
Jews"?
Is earned by completing the associated Call of the Wolf quest line.
Oh.
Awesome. Yeah, those look really great. And of course, as you mentioned, resplendent sparks. And then I know there's
love
one
the
other
Jews.
item that I know we wanted to talk about with this season specific, because it is specific for season 4. And
Yeah. Thanks for the
Oh,
reminder on that.
God,
That's
I love how
covered.
excited he
I
gets
know,
about this.
Derek
he's
has
so
like
passionate.
the largest
Look
list
at
of
him.
items to kind of go through here. So
Just smiling.
Yeah, so
He's very
as mentioned
autistic.
before,
I
on
can
the seasonal
totally-
team,
he
we love our
definitely is.
experiments.
There's no
And
way
I
he's
don't
not
think a season would be
Asperger's.
one without some level of
He's a kindred
experiment. So
soul.
with that,
I
we
mean,
have
me
the
too.
seasonal item,
Yeah,
or as
I
kind of
feel
like call it the seasonal toy.
I know you do.
And that's the
You're just
profane mind cage.
PTSD autism.
Yeah,
It's
so there
different.
it is. So the profane mind cage is pretty
Wait,
cool in the sense
I might
that
be
it's a
too.
guaranteed drop from the Hellborn, and when you consume it, I kind of like to imagine you
Is
just
that the
like
Oh, the
brain
mind
from-
cage.
you
That's
know,
from Baldur's Gate. Yeah.
consume it
What was
for the
its
next
name?
60
His
minutes.
friend.
The
I
Helltide
don't know. What did he
monsters
call
are going to
himself?
be boosted up to 10 levels,
Us?
depending on the world tier that you consumed
Us,
it in.
yeah.
And
What? Really?
you're
Is it
also
called
gonna be
Us?
increasing their aberrant
We
cinder
are
drop rates.
us.
So, again, all tying this back to that leveling journey and like tempering
Wow.
and stuff, like this is a really fun item that lets you kind of put your build to a little bit more of a test in exchange for
us, you're right. The
maximizing
intellect
your
devourer.
Helltide efficiencies
Yeah.
through, just one higher monster level means, more XP and stuff like that, and also just aberrant cinder drops too.
Yeah, we also,
oh, go ahead.
oh,
Go ahead,
I was just
Colin,
gonna say we juiced the world tier 2, 3, and 4
Oh.
XP, so
Oh,
it
that's yeah.
ties
yeah.
super well. You can just get to blast to endgame very quickly now.
Yep.
Yeah, and with the mind cage itself, like, because everyone's probably going like, well, that's a consumable. Like, how do people end up like obtaining additional ones of those, or
that's a
can you get
really
more
good
of
question. I
those
didn't
throughout the
think of
season
that.
and everything?
Yeah, we want to be very
Adam's really
generous
good with his
those.
questions.
So one, there
He is,
is
he's like a
drops
teacher.
from the
He asks
Hellborn
it like a
in
teacher
World
would.
Tiers 3 and 4. But you can also use them in World Tiers 1 and 2, so if you want
I
to
agree.
boost some level, alts and whatnot. You also get I think like a bucket of them.
But I'm in World
through
Tier
the
1 and 2 for like
Wolves
2
Honor
hours.
reputation. Like we
so-
crammed as many rewards as we could in there, so they will be. In
I love
steady
Adam.
stream,
He's the
so
social
don't-
intelligence
again,
of the
In
team.
the spirit of like use it, don't hoard it. Definitely experiment
Us
and have
nerds
fun with
need
this
that
thing, 'cause,
kinda.
It's
Yeah.
a game. Have fun.
Yeah, so it's great. Like if you
feel
want
like
a little
kinda
bit more
sets
of a
the
challenge, a
pace
little bit
for how
better
we
rewards
should
as well, you can
articulate
of
our
course use
question.
your mind cage, and that is exclusive for players in the season. So yeah, it's awesome to see. But yeah, thank you, Derek, for walking us through all the changes with Helltide. And
Yes,
of course, some
Derek,
of the new season
yes.
stuff
Good
with
job.
the Iron Wolves. And if you're a lore nerd, Iron Wolves, of course, are a very familiar faction within Diablo. They are from Diablo 2, Act 3. You could actually hire them as some of your mercenaries, or one of the mercenary options. Though
So do we get
know a
our
lot of
own
people
personal
enact
customizable Iron Wolves, or is
only
that
hearing
something
about-
else?
But yes.
See,
Cool. Thank you so much,
Helltides.
Derek. And of course, we still have more to talk about. We're actually going to go back to Colin.
Oh, Chef
and
Colin.
is going to
Go,
Let's
a
go.
little bit about the pit.
Yes.
The pit is a brand new feature
I'm
within
so
season
seeing
4
if
and
he's
is
on
now
Twitter.
a permanent feature within Diablo 4.
right.
And
find
yeah, do you want to like give us a breakdown for people who may have not experienced the pit or may have not seen the stream beforehand, and then on top of that, tell us about all the improvements that we're doing to the pit based off of feedback.
Yeah, so, you know, something that players have asked for since we did a bunch of nerfs to the
see
Nightmare
my
Dungeons, if you recall, I
on,
forget what season it was,
their
but we made
page.
tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons a lot easier so that players could get through them. One of the big pieces of feedback we got was, okay, well, where's my measuring stick? You know, the game is a power fantasy. It's about getting as much raw power as possible and just dominating. Right?
Yes.
So if there's no place to push back, then you know everything is just a little bit too easy. So the Pit of the Artificer is our answer to that measuring stick. You're going to be able to push very deep into the pit. There's a lot of levels. We were inspired by Abattoir of Zir, but to be very clear, you know, Abattoir of Zir was a special case in that each tier jump was just like brutal.
It was
right?
like exponential.
Yeah, it was like ridiculously hard every single tier, and it's like, you could only get to 7, which isn't very heroic or powerful, right? So we've taken a lot of the learnings from Abattoir of Zir. The pit goes very deep. There's many more tiers. It's much more gradual, so you can start pushing into it and getting some of these masterworking material rewards. And the pit is all about, you know, just blasting through monsters and the demons of hell, right? There's no negative modifiers. We're not CCing you a bunch. You know, this is really just a test of how powerful your build is. So from the PTR, we actually got feedback that it was way too easy because we added a ton of power through tempering, through the Codex of Power. It's just much easier to get a lot of those aspects online. So we've taken a look and we've moved some of the masterworking material tiers around. Previously, you know, the tier 1 masterworking materials only came from 1 to 20. We've moved that up 10 tiers. So tier 1 will come from 1 to 29. Tier 2 will come from 30 to 59, and tier 3 will be 60 plus. And what that does is it just makes the journey feel a little bit more rewarding, right? Like we saw in the PTR that people just like within the first 2 hours just blasted through all of it because they're so powerful. So we've just adjusted some of the rates there. So you have to push a little bit deeper. You have to optimize your build a little bit more. So those armor caps are things to watch out for, right? Where if you're over the armor cap, it's just a straight optimization to start thinking
In
about
other
how you wanna
words,
replace
get
some of that
good.
armor. We think that feels pretty good. And overall, we've increased the health and damage.
Dude, him and his team are saving this game. I'm gonna tell you guys.
They're doing amazing.
And I'm glad they put him on this stream because people are loving his ass.
He feels like a gamer, like one of
just
us.
one-shotting
He really
everything,
does.
Right? So it sort of
Yes.
tests you a lot
Aw,
more.
And,
Tylen, thank you for subscribing.
You know, and part of that feedback though
Get
that
the
we've
10
heard is that
subs!
well, like
Thank
Nightmare
you.
Dungeons
Oh my
don't feel
goodness.
very
Wow,
rewarding.
bro.
The pit doesn't feel super
Oh, I
rewarding
appreciate that
post,
so
you know,
much.
that
Oh my
60
God,
tier
you
when
are
you're getting
awesome.
those
Thank you.
masterworking,
Hell
top
yeah,
end
bro.
masterworking materials. So we've done 2 major changes. One is we've added obols that scale with both of these tiers. So everything past tier 46 in Nightmare Dungeons and everything past tier 1 in the pit, actually. It just always gives you obols. You might ask, like, but obols are terrible. But, you know, again...
Why do I want obols, Colin?
I know, right? A big part of Season 4 was that, you know, we made the Gambler guarantee 925 legendaries at level 100. And those legendaries can roll greater affixes. So, you know, if you blow, you know, a ton of obols on two-handers, for example, those two-handed legendaries you're getting are the same as anywhere else in the game.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
so
actually a huge
gambling's real.
efficiency boost to
Gambling's
it.
real now.
absolute
They made gambling.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even a gamble. It's just like
Absolutely.
spend some shit and get
one
some
thing
cool shit.
That is also changing with obols. Is
All right.
Because, you know, when people pick up obols, they're like, oh,
Aw,
I
thank you,
got my cap.
Tylen.
And
You take care.
Yeah,
I'm
probably
like,
someone's like
I'm like, I
typing.
run back to town and
But
do-
Colin, the obol cap is fucked. So you know, like we've increased the obol cap substantially. So the amount of obols you get now is 2,500. You can hold up to.
Oh, yeah.
So you can just
Go,
like
Colin,
go to the gambler and be like, give me everything, and you can just do that a couple of times.
A couple
Get
of
your
times.
elbows and hit the
Okay.
tables. pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And the
They
items
get
are
it.
incredible.
And just
get
to
it.
like double down on this for a second too, like one
Yeah,
of the
Alex,
things that we
yeah.
also did as part of this, like when you use the enchanting feature in Diablo 4, you can't actually enchant off of an affix into a greater affix.
That's right.
Yes.
So when a good item drops for you in the base game, you can't try to like roll for greater affixes off the enchanting system.
Yeah.
It's good for getting you to a stat you really need in a situation where an item didn't get you what you wanted.
Yeah.
But now with the Opals vendor, like those items, not only are they iPower 925 and they have the chance to be legendary, of course, like the Opals vendor always has, but you also have a chance to get greater affixes off those gambled items.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a particular pair of gloves, you're looking for a particular helmet, and you're saying, I really want a greater affix version of cooldown reduction on my helmet. Right, like now it's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna take my 2,000 Opals. I'm gonna go to the vendor. I'm just gonna gamble, and try to get that one helmet.
Yeah.
Like now I have a chance to really do that, and this is a way for you to like getting more drops and such inside the pit is one thing, but giving you more choice when you get out of a pit run, I think is very valuable.
It's gonna feel way better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another change we made was to Glyph XP. We got a bunch of feedback.
Yes.
It's like, what the hell, Nightmare Dungeons. So we've increased the Glyph XP by 25%, which is faster leveling. And we've also scaled the amount of rune shards, which is the pit currency to get into the pit, with Nightmare Dungeon. So you can create sort of a positive feedback loop if you're really strong, you're really powerful, you're hitting those tier 100s. In the Nightmare Dungeons, you're getting tons of pit keys that you can then translate into the pit and just get lots of runs and lots of masterworking there.
Yeah, so a lot of feedback from Nightmare Dungeons. People were saying like, hey, are we planning on making any changes to that Glyph XP? And so there
That's
are.
a good way to do it.
We sure did. We actioned on it for sure. So there's funny enough. There's also even in the
someone in the comments made a really strong point.
I believe there's also
Bring armories
changes
back.
to that.
Bring
the
swapping
everyone's been begging
builds
for
on the
it.
fly.
Glyph XP is also part of that.
It sucks that
with
we're
the
already on
season
season
journey. So,
4
very cool,
and have not
stuff that we have.
gotten
One
an
more.
armory
Sorry.
yet.
I have this
Like
list,
that-
but then I don't
that's-
actually read it.
But then
It's just
he
like a
does it.
I
blog.
do get that
Sorry.
there are other things that are
One
really
other thing
important,
that we did
but I think
was
that
we
is
heard a bunch of
very
feedback
important.
that players were dying.
I
at the end
hope
of
that
the
is
pit, 'cause
something
we have this like,
addressed
shadow
very
boss
soon.
that sometimes comes in
Agreed.
and throws a wrench in what you're doing. And as much as I push for learn to play, our encounter design.
I like that good philosophy person.
Ruthless.
Absolutely.
Take
it was
that,
hilarious.
They said their response was Colin is not done.
Yeah, isn't it fun to die after you killed the boss? So
Oh,
our
I
encounter
posted about that
designer, Did an
exactly.
amazing job cleaning up a lot of those affixes after you kill that boss, and
Good.
the arena should be clear now after you kill that boss.
Like I would
As
kill
Pat says,
some
get
really
good.
high tier bosses and insta die
But,
as soon as he died.
yeah,
I'm dead too.
we saw that a lot, and if you're a hardcore player, that would have been a tragic loss to
Oh,
your
I
character.
couldn't
I prefer the word
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, some designers like fist pumping, like yes, got it.
Yeah, just watching streams and reactions.
Guy
from
is
that.
Chad.
So, awesome. So
Chad?
a lot of changes coming
Alright.
for the pit. Pit
For
is,
real.
of course, a new feature within Diablo 4 permanently, and you can
Yeah.
experience that in Eternal and Seasonal realms.
Oh, you get Pit
and
in Eternal,
of course,
yes!
we have some updates to the boss ladder because the boss ladder itself is changing pretty significantly. We
still
talked a little bit about like how
feel
you can get
strongly that
additional
they
materials
need
in other
two
places,
different types of
that
seasons.
Derek had mentioned.
One that's a
but,
ladder season and
Colin
one that
has
is-
additional like points.
It
that he
allows
wants
you
to
to
bring
import
about,
your Eternal
the
realm
boss ladder because
character.
we got a lot of feedback on that, and
Right?
there's some new
Do
changes.
a
to
level up
Season 4.
season and then do
Yeah,
a
so
I'm bringing
we
all my
added
shit with me
Endgame, the
season.
best lesser
Yeah.
evil.
Yes. Ooh,
Just like there's
Asmodee.
hardcore and softcore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always dunking me.
Yeah, just
Don't.
don't swim with works all day. Who likes that guy?
Yeah. So Andariel obviously has come back. She's incredibly fun to fight. The encounter design team.
I love
killed
to
it.
hear that.
And on top of Andariel, we've added a new tier to the boss ladder called Tormented Bosses. So these
Oh
are
my
much higher level than
goodness.
level 200 bosses,
No
sort of
kidding.
pinnacle aspirational bosses to take down.
Bro's hitting for
what
millions
we've
and
done
doing
here is
nothing.
we heard a bunch of feedback that it required 5 times the amount of boss materials, including some rare pit material, to summon these, and 5 times the reward. That didn't really feel like the right amount of reward efficiency for taking on something that was challenging, so we've nerfed
So
the cost.
challenging.
It's now 3x the amount of boss material and 5x the reward, so you get some pretty big efficiency wins there, especially if you're crushing
I
it
like
in the
that.
endgame.
That's a good change.
So that's feeling pretty good, we think.
Go, Colin!
We also heard a lot of feedback that it's tedious to do the same activity over and over and over to summon some of these things, right? So it's like,
Yes.
I want to summon Penitent Knight, or I want to do the Beast of Ice. I know you and I have done that one like you know,
yeah, every
hundreds
build
of
I've
times.
chosen in a season requires the Beast and Ice, and
it's like, I guess
I'm
I'm
just
doing
stuck
another
in
Nightmare Dungeon.
hell forever. It's been great.
Yeah.
Very
So
happy about that.
yeah, well, we made it better. A lot of our random, you know, monsters and activities and things like that. So, you know, elites, whisper caches, treasure goblins, world bosses, you know, Hellborn, to name a few, are all going to start randomly dropping these boss materials. So,
Thank
you know,
you,
you're not
thank
necessarily
you.
forced into doing one exact activity. It's still going to be the absolute best way to get some of this boss material. But as long as you're blasting, you're just going to be
So
getting
now
a
they're
lot
not
of these materials
pigeonholing
ambiently,
you.
which you can trade. You can just sort of cash in on at your heart's desire.
This is
And
a
we think this
quality of
makes the
life
game feel more
improvement. That's
flexible and
huge.
sort
A
of
lot of
enables
people
I've
you
got
to
never
a
mad
little bit
seen
more how you wanna
commentary
play while still
on a
keeping
dev
the
stream
experience fresh.
this
So
excited and
constructive
positive.
yeah.
I've never seen this.
Yeah.
That's good.
To jump back into the Torment bosses, just because I'm going to jump around a little bit, we heard a bunch of feedback, especially from Mudijo. Hopefully he's watching. Is that
There's
the
no
bosses?
way Woody is watching right
I know,
now.
probably not.
Mudijo
No,
is watching.
He's
not watching.
She's not streaming.
We
it.
did some tuning to make sure that the tormented versions have some more parity, right? It was sort of like in a scenario where like one of the ladder bosses was just like dead easy, didn't really match the difficulty of the rest, and that's
fair.
important.
Yeah, he is watching,
because we give
100%.
you one
He
guaranteed
is,
resplendent spark one time for defeating any of these. So one step closer to getting that uber unique that's not just a raw drop of your choice, which is pretty awesome. And then something else, you know, speaking of resplendent sparks, we're adding one to Uber Lilith. So the first time you kill Uber Lilith, you're also going to get another resplendent spark.
Good,
So
because you
Now,
only got like
that
one of
brings us
those.
to
You don't get
3
shit from Lilith
opportunities of being able
previously.
to earn yourself
It was
a
just
resplendent spark.
clout,
We heard one
nothing
from,
else.
from Derek at the
Now
end
you
of
get
the,
shit.
the season, the
Oh.
Iron Wolves, you know,
Let's
board,
go.
and doing that within the season. We now have one with the Echo of Lilith, and of course one with your first Tormented boss as well. So additional opportunities to earn resplendent sparks, and of course you can still salvage your any Uber gear
right.
that you do happen to find, and you can actually earn a
'cause you get
resplendent spark
duplicates.
now.
So what that means is if you do all of these and then you get an Uber unique, you can actually change that into whatever one you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is really what that means.
And then something else, you know, on the Uber uniques is that
I'm just laughing because I didn't realize this, but chat's calling out with our tooltip that we showed. We had 200 plus resplendent sparks.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you.
We're
you
just
work,
really
yeah,
lucky
we're
and
just,
good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was like, is that
Let me tell you guys
You
about
get them?
dev tools.
Yeah, that's actually my account online. So
Oh yeah. There you go.
Resplendent sparks for you. Resplendent sparks for you.
on the Uber uniques,
Everyone gets
you know,
them.
we heard a bunch of feedback that it feels like a chore to have to do, you know, the Penitent Knight into Varshan,
Thank
into
you,
Doom
Colin.
Journal just for
Yes,
a chance at an
yes.
Uber unique, right? And you know, we've experienced that ourselves.
It felt like a
It's God, I gotta
punishment
do
when
all
you had
this
to
stuff
grind
to,
so
to
much.
fight the boss that's going to actually drop something that I care about.
Yes.
You know, greater affixes help that because you know there's some variation to the
That's
uniques
fair.
you're going to get. But for Uber uniques, we've actually added a small chance, a little bit lower than Duriel, to all of the ladder bosses, and they're going to have a chance to drop an Uber unique as well. So you know, while you're grinding through this ladder, every single boss you kill is going to have a chance to drop an Uber unique. It's not exactly the same as Duriel and Duriel. We should do like a combo, like Duriel.
A lot of Uriels.
A lot of
We
Uriels,
think that's going to make it
yes.
feel a lot better.
Awesome. So yeah, a lot of changes coming with boss ladder and changes based off of PTR feedback that we saw.
Yep.
Plus just overall changes for season 4 that we were planning, so that it's gives more opportunities for players to actually experience it. And of course, the new versions of the bosses themselves.
His mic is going in and out.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much, Colin. Of
course.
And I know we wanted to, before we jump into Q&A, because we're getting towards the end of our updates for season 4.
Oh my god, me and another guy at the same time, the moment I pressed enter, said Colin saved Diablo 4, and he goes, Colin, savior of D4.
Class designer, we're really
What?
passionate about
At the
this one,
same
excited
time,
for it.
bro.
So the season
You
journey,
gotta be kidding me. Come
so we really
on.
want to kind of juice
I
the
hope
rewards and make the
everyone's loving
season
him.
journey more
Aw.
exciting.
Dude, I hope they're
So
like,
what we
here's
went and
$10
did
million.
was, when you're going
Colin,
through
thank
the season journey for
Colin.
every class, you're
They said
actually
this
going
guy
to
needs
gain
a raise. He
preset
needs to be paid more than
curated, amount
anyone
of
on the team.
legendaries as you're going through that are
Someone
targeted
said the
toward a
C in
specific build.
CEO is
So we
Colin.
chose a build for every class in season 4, and we're gonna change
Make
it around
Colin
future seasons.
CEO.
Please give us feedback
Colin
on
is a
this one. We think it'd be
giga chat.
pretty
Oh
cool.
god.
But you
Colin
basically
is
get
giga
like
Dude, they've been
Gotcha.
saying he's
limited
Giga Chad
build
and
when it comes to
goated
opening those caches
for
with
like
guaranteed
15
targeted
minutes
legendaries to
non-stop.
build
The moment
specific
he
fantasy
opened
for
his
class.
mouth,
I think we
we're like,
should
oh
have
my
a way
god!
to show what They're going to be for every class in season 4.
We have Colin every campfire.
Maybe
Yes.
there. So Barbarian here, you can see.
If it's not a
we're
Colin
going to be giving you a
campfire
bunch of
chat, I
legendaries
don't want
related
it.
to dust doubles. The Druid,
Can we
we're going to
just
be giving
have
you
him
basically a
talk?
pulverized build.
Oh my gosh.
Which
Can
is pretty
Colin be in
cool.
the game?
Can he? Yeah, right.
No, he needs to be a class.
A class.
He's a
Colin
class
Colin
of
Colin.
his own.
Of course,
He's
everybody's
a
gonna be
class,
playing
race,
minions,
and
so
gender,
we're
all
gonna
of
do
his own.
minion-focused legendaries. This should be pretty awesome. And then next is the Sorceress. We actually
And
have a
he
cool
just
new
has
legendary
one
coming into the game
ability
for
and it, like,
Incinerate, which you'll
smites
see
the
here.
entire
It
board.
splits up.
Stop.
We're giving you an Incinerate
Stop.
build on the
need it.
Sorceress.
He's more complex than that.
And then the Rogue,
Oh, okay,
we're giving
okay.
you one targeted toward Barrage. So again, kind of the point of this is that, you know, if you don't really know what you want to play, or you really want to just go through a season journey and try out something before you go to a build that you really want to do,
Ooh.
you have a foundation of something more complete to start with, which we're pretty excited
Yes,
about.
yes,
and with the
Adam,
codex
let's
change
go.
now, you also get to like all those items are actually dropping out of the season journey caches. You get to kind of keep those. They're all going to your codex. You
Yep.
can use that build for the entirety of your leveling process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Awesome. So lots of changes coming this season.
Now I
Sorry,
don't
my
have
mic
to
died
wonder
halfway
so
through there,
much.
so I had to do a quick mic swap as we were playing
We were
footage.
free from
Also, Joe Pipor's back.
How did he get
hi,
here?
Joe.
How
Derek
did
is
he
now
get here?
So, if people are confused of like what's going on, we are playing
It's
musical chairs.
Daddy
That
P.
is-
Piora.
That is also a new feature
Our
coming in
favorite
season
game.
4. I'm just kidding.
That's the only
Yeah, so a lot of
Has
changes.
anyone
Season
noticed
4
how
for huge.
sexy
It's by
Joe's
far the
ring
biggest season,
is?
For Diablo 4
What?
yet.
No.
And
Am
know
I
we
the
wanted to
only
jump
one
into
who
Pretty
Q&A.
flashy.
deeply
I do
wishes
wanna
they
bring up
had
one
like
thing
a
as well.
rustic,
Oh, wow.
manly
Which is,
titanium
this is a
ring?
change
It's
that
very manly. That's cool.
will be
I'll
represented.
move my
And by the
camera
way,
chat
patch
here
notes
now.
are coming out
Alina?
immediately after this
Check it out.
stream.
When are you
So-
gonna put a ring on
So
it?
that's one thing. So
Whoa!
yeah, people can check out patch notes immediately after this stream.
Please enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed writing it.
Writing it and
over and
reviewing
over
it
and
and
over
editing
again.
it. And I wouldn't, based off of the size
that
of the patch
wasn't a
notes, I
no.
wouldn't be surprised if we do
What?
have a few things that
Ooh,
might
the
be
plot
missing that we'll probably
thickens.
like have to post add if as we're kind of going through it, just because it's massive in terms of size, as people saw from PTR, and now it's just
It
even
represents a few
something
different
there.
teams like effort trying
Yeah.
to deliver this too.
Yeah, so
Alina, is it
but,
tempting at all
patch
for
notes will
you
be up.
this season
One thing
to
in the
start
patch
in
notes that I did
hardcore?
want to bring up is, and this is
I
a thing
want
that's
to,
coming
yeah.
in season 4, is
Oh my
for
God,
players
I would
that
actually
wanna change
consider it.
their hair on their
I'm
characters
so
themselves. They
scared,
can actually
though.
go to the wardrobe
I've
now
been-
and actually be able to do it, which is a nice like,
Because
good quality
everything
of life
is
feature.
more
We've
permanent.
heard a lot
it
of
feels like,
people go
with
like,
the
hey,
codex and all
kind of want
that,
to, I
being
made
able
that character a
to
while ago, especially like an
kind of
eternal character or something like
see
that.
what
I'd
an
like to be able to
index
change
build
that
would
around.
feel like
Yeah,
earlier
now
on
have that
because you're
flexibility of
getting
being able to do
aspects.
so, which is actually really cool. So
We'll think about it.
we're gonna jump into
Less
Q&A
investment on
as
the
usual,
what ifs,
as we always do.
seems like.
We will
Alina
start
put a
off with a
ring
question.
on
This
it
is actually
next
something that's
stream?
been
Oh.
a popular topic that a lot of people
Whoa.
have been talking about since PTR, and of course
Live
even
wedding
this
stream?
week
Wait.
with the
Alex
blogs
is putting
itself.
a ring on
But,
Endo first.
Leave
Oh,
me in suspense.
Ooh.
I know.
Oh.
Don't
let them go out to lunch.
I think we have the question there.
Hey, I need a
What does
diamond
this
if
mean
you're
for
doing
season
that.
powers in the future?
hey.
Oh, just what season 4 is, like
Yeah.
the nature of season 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
That rock better be
So,
bigger
yeah,
than my
Listen.
season 4
teeth.
is
Listen.
Season 4, as I mentioned before, is like an opportunity for us to kind of like lift up a lot of aspects of the game that we think are really important.
Yes.
Diablo is a game about killing monsters and getting loot. And as I said before, getting loot,
That's a simple
we need to make
formula.
sure it feels at least as good as killing monsters, right? Like it's extremely important that this part
We need the
feels good.
dopamine, guys.
And we took a lot of our development
Oh, no,
effort
sir.
and put it against that goal as part of this release. And there were other parts of the game that we lifted up at the same time, like the various changes that we talked about for Helltide, for example. You know, the myriad new tempering recipes and things like that. There's lots of things we did, I think, as part of the release, to just make the base experience of Diablo 4 more fun, right? So I'm really excited we're able to do that in
Yeah.
season 4. Thinking about what the future holds, we always want to make sure that with every season, you know, we are adapting to what we think the game needs at that time. We think it's going to make for a better experience overall. We love the idea of seasonal powers. We've learned a lot of really, really great stuff from the days of the Barber all the way through the vampiric powers we got in season 2, and all the Seneschal and Construct stuff we had in season 3. We have lots of big ideas for the future. So, but you know, you will see seasonal powers again in the future in different themes and mechanics as we go. That's kind of our promise to you. And with the things that we have in terms of like the Iron Wolves quest line and the various rewards you get, changes we made to the season journey for like getting like all of those themed items, those various like kind of aspect builds together as you kind of progress through. We want to keep building upon these mechanical elements as well at the same time to kind of continue to help lift up the experience. So yeah, we will be returning seasonal powers in the future. You know, but with every season, we want to make sure that we're doing what we think is be up, like lifting the game up the most, the things that we think are most important at that time.
Awesome. question from our, I'll bounce between some questions from chat and from our forums, because we did have a thread up in our forums about specific questions, but this one's from the forums. This is from Avalon. They're asking if, because Season 3 actually ran longer and Season 4 itself had a PTR, will Season 4 actually be a shortened season, or will it still be a standard size season? They weren't sure how PTR is actually affecting the time on it.
So PTR is not as impactful for the timing here. I think it's a slightly shorter season. I think it's like 1 week shorter or something. I need to look at the date.
And I will note, like, PTR, the reason why Season 3 ran longer was because we wanted to make sure that we could get that PTR. This was our first PTR, so there was a little bit more effort needed to get that out for players.
I guess you're absolutely right. So like I think about when I'm thinking about the future and like what PTRs look like, what we want things to be like. It's not that like having a PTR automatically means that everything is going to take longer to deliver. But there was a lot of things we had to set up for the first time for the PTR for Season 4, and I'm really glad that we did, because as I think you've seen, there's a lot of things we learned as going through the process.
And it gave us the time to iterate and use the feedback too.
Yeah.
Tons of people are asking about the pit leaderboards. I don't care that much
will
about
you guys
leaderboards.
think about maybe a potential different beam color for items
once my
with greater
build was
affixes?
min-maxed.
I'm more
so I know we talked about this
interested
for a while.
in damage meters
Yeah, I
than
think
leaderboards.
it's something we're definitely going to keep an eye on. Like right now, we think that the little dots, or I should say huge dots, the huge stars on them, are doing a pretty good job. But that's something that we also need to feel out and play, and we're super open to feedback and seeing how these new big stars are going to help.
The change, especially the changes
Someone
in the
needs to
inventory.
go on the
'Cause right
Diablo
now you can
Lex
actually
and
identify them in your
ask them
inventory and
to
everything. That's really
show
big.
Colin
These
the
also roll
photo
on
of
unique,
letting
so there's a little
him
bit of
cook.
work that we'll need to
Chef's
figure out. But again,
Yeah, it's true.
just
Yeah,
really-
you can get your graphics and unique.
I mean,
items
I don't
as
know
well.
if we can link
Yeah,
it.
so it's like the beam color gets.
I don't
It's
think
on
they'll allow
Diablo's
that.
page. It's on their
something
page
to,
now.
that we'll
idea.
monitor for
Like,
sure.
he
And,
needs
of
to
course,
see it,
something
like,
that
I
we've seen
think-
from players and a lot of people bringing that
hope this,
specifically up.
I don't know, encourages
Fire
him.
Dragon
He's
Dad
been
says that
very
the
well
Season 4
received
updates
by
Is it on
retro
Twitter?
into
Yeah, it's on
existing
their Diablo page.
Eternal. So everything we talked about today, with
be
the
like,
exception
Colin,
of
get on
the
Diablo's
Iron Wolf
Twitter,
questline
please.
stuff, is actually
Let him
present
cook.
in the
Let him
Eternal
cook.
realm. So players like the Codex power changes, everything like that will be there. I know there are a lot of questions related to like the Codex changes, especially for Eternal players. And just to clarify, if
Posted
you have
about it.
aspects in your inventory and your stash, it'll take whatever your highest roll of that specific aspect, and that will become your new best Codex entry when Season 4 does start. You may need to log on to specific characters on Eternal to at least like for us to be able to check your inventory, but the stash I know will automatically move over there. And same thing for I know we get a lot of questions about like items on Eternal. Those will be marked as like legacy items specifically because obviously we've changed a lot of affixes and everything.
And those items you can't craft on those items either at that point. Like you can't temper those items and you can't masterwork those items. But they'll still retain like the item upgrade state that they had from the blacksmith before.
Exactly. So if it doesn't mean like when you log on all your gear is suddenly unusable. It's just marked as legacy, and you won't be able to use tempering or masterwork.
It's a great stepping off point to getting some new items that could have greater affixes and other things that could make it even more powerful.
Yeah.
A question that we have actually from the forums. This is from Iggy. With the itemization reworks, is there what is like the next like big thing you guys are actually looking at potentially wanting to really work on within the team? I don't know if we want to play our cards too early. Yeah.
Well, I think
We're working on things.
We're working on all kinds of stuff, everybody. But no, I think one thing we want to continue to work on, I think you see like, as we're thinking more about the endgame experience, a lot like when we launched Diablo 4, we thought of endgame really as a journey from 50 to 100, like the things you're doing along the way, and getting all of your Paragon glyphs and leveling those glyphs up and diving
50
deeper
to
in Nightmare
100,
dungeons
that's a
and
huge,
going and eventually confronting Lilith. That was what we kind of imagined
point.
or thought that endgame would feel like, and that was a good thing for us to build on. I think we saw that a lot more players were looking for endgame like explicitly at level 100. Yeah. That was when they wanted a lot more things to open up, and we've made a lot of changes recently to try to like create more gameplay around that part of the experience between like the itemization changes and the crafting changes, and also the introduction of like tormented bosses, and of course the Pay the Artificer.
Yeah.
So I think that like we know that there's more opportunities for us to build on these things, right? Like I think you've heard me say this before, but a lot of the things we're doing in Season 4 specifically really are done to like build a new framework, for how endgame sort of functions, the things that drive a player forward, the things that get them excited, and the content that they engage with along the way as well, right? We want to make sure that that players are having a really fun time, a rewarding time while they're playing Diablo 4, and they can find opportunities to be appropriately challenged as they go through the experience as
No
well.
more feeling
I think there's
burned
more
out from
opportunities for it to kind of like grow and expand the offerings and things that players who have access to, the things they can go experience, at that stage of the game.
Awesome. Question from Old Dudes, New Games. I love these names.
I love how you giggled at that. That was cute.
What about codex resetting when swapping characters? That was actually just an issue on PTR. Like when you swapped
so glad that was
characters
just a
and stuff
bug
like that.
because it reset it all, and I was
Yeah,
like,
when
what?
you swap,
Nice.
then you use the when you use the boost NPC. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was not a thing that you will experience with season 4.
That stressed me out, man. I
And
had
so
nightmares.
that's not a common thing or
Wake
a
up,
normal
my
thing
codex
that's
is
supposed to actually
reset.
happen. It just was a bug that we had in PTR. There's a lot of questions here about the mine cage, and I just want to
idiot. He said
maybe
Blizzard
clarify
sucks.
with the
That's
players.
all he had to say.
Opus Crocus
That's
says,
so
if you consume
constructive,
more
man. That
than
really
one,
helps
does
the
the
game
mine
better
cage stack or
itself.
does the timer reset?
What a
Timer reset, I
dumbass.
Yeah, the timer resets.
Timer resets. Okay, and then in regards to, again, this is from Optics. Do mine cages trigger for a single player
You mean mine
or
players?
your whole group if you're grouped up?
Ooh.
Single player. I
Just a
believe it's
single
personal.
player. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a personal thing. Okay. All right. So clarity around the mine cages because I know we've had a lot of people ask specifically.
And we want
about
feedback on this, by the way, too. So when you get a chance to play with the
I
mine
better
cage
see
during the
some
season,
D4
like
characters
tell
in
us what you
Baldur's
think.
Gate.
Want to know?
After this.
This is from Nupu Games. Do unique items get a stat/functionality boost since tempered legendaries are just straight up better? And is it generally not worth it to equip a unique item after the patch?
Yeah, I mean, I think Adam can speak to some of these changes if you wanted to jump in, but we've done a pass on all the unique items. We've done things like Razor Blade, I think has 4 Thorns affixes, and we changed what the legendary power is.
Yeah. By the way, that was a big question we got from people at PTR because they were like, hey, what about
Razor Plate? We heard a lot. No, we had to change Razor Plate, but it'll be cool.
And it's actually in the patch notes, and yeah, it's a lot of Thorns.
Razor Plate's hilarious. We still love it.
It's hilarious.
I wanted to just have like one.
See, that's what I want to do. I
Yeah.
actually legitimately
about
want to
unique
do a
legendary
Thorns
item
Necromancer.
Power level, I suppose,
Yeah.
is that we know
And I
we were
think
making
it's
these
going to be
temporary
really
changes
viable in
videos
this
that
patch.
We wanted
Really
legendaries
valuable. Like,
because they kind of have
possibly
they have kind of
busted.
different identities right now in the
wait.
game, and so we're still figuring out what we want to do with uniques long term. But the idea is that like legendary items or items really, they have a journey, and you're working on them, and there's a story to them, and you get it, and it's not like a one-stop shop. You're done, kind of like how they were before. Uniques, a part of their identity is that like you get a unique and it's freaking awesome and really powerful and very exciting, and you have it and you're done with it. And so we're keeping this discrepancy of like what their purposes are in the game for now, and kind of seeing how it goes. We did take a look at some uniques, but we didn't like do a whole pass of like every single unique now has 5 affixes or something like that. Like we wanted them to be a little bit different, have different identities. So we do kind of expect that uniques may be less prevalent than they were before. We still believe, though, that a lot of uniques are really key for various builds, and so you're still going to want them. But you're not going to want, like, a unique in every single slot in your character now because they're just clearly always better, right? Sometimes some builds will want more uniques, some will want less, and we want to kind of see how that plays first before making sweeping changes. Some obvious roads we could take is, like, adding crafting to uniques. What if you could temper them? What if you could do these other things, right? Like, we know that that's a thing, and we may do that in the future, but we're kind of evaluating this world where it's not clearly always you only get one or the other, and we kind of want to see how that goes first before making any big changes.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and the fixed nature sort of
As long as they can
has you consider it's part of your optimization puzzle, right?
Yes.
Like, well, I'm going to give up some tempering affixes to get this unique, for example, in my chest slot, for example. And we sort of want to see where that goes. Like, we think that that's fun, and we think that the excitement of a unique are those fixed stats. When you see the item on the ground, like, oh, okay, that's the unique I want. I can just equip it. I don't even have to work on it.
Yeah.
It's just like there for me. So,
awesome. And then I know. By the way, did we talk about Masterworking or not Masterworking?
We did talk about Masterworking.
A lot.
we did talk.
I know.
We've done it twice on stream.
Did we talk about groups and with the pit?
I didn't write it down and I didn't talk about it. Yeah. So we got a bunch of feedback that it sucks to help someone with their pit run and just not get any masterworking material. It's like, well, why am I here? So what we've done is we've made it so that the person who opens the pit is going to get 100% of the masterworking materials. Previously, I think it was split maybe across all players. And what we've done now is that the person who opens it gets 100%, and then everyone who helps defeat the pit gets 50% of that target goal. So we're trying to walk that line where group play isn't just like totally overwhelmingly efficient, but you're still getting something for helping each other go through those pit levels.
Yeah, we
Wonder how that'll feel.
heard a lot of feedback about players going like, it feels a little unrewarding to and so
Yeah,
totally
what's the
some
point?
changes
In general, I think there's still some tension with how players feel about the efficiency of groups versus the efficiency of solo play with like boss summons and things like that. These are things we're thinking about. We have ideas on, but we want to continue to get feedback, particularly with these changes. And kind of see how things play
it's
out.
like, what's the reward?
Group
Awesome.
play
We're getting questions about,
efficient,
hey, are
and
there any
fun,
updates on social features?
while
and
still
things like that
making
coming
solo
to
play
D4.
somehow
Don't know if we have
fun
anything
and
to share
efficient
right
as
now.
well.
Right. It's something
That's
obviously the
Because
team is very well.
we
you
don't
guys ask
want
all
to
the time,
be
so we're very, very aware of it. And
aligned
the team
towards
is
one
been
thing,
looking at it, and we'll,
that
once we have more to share,
the
we'll
solo
end up sharing
players
it with you guys.
get
But for right now, we
trashed.
don't have any update.
Yeah.
There's
Or
questions
vice
about
versa.
it. Is there if there's plans of adding maybe potential leaderboards to the
Oh.
pit or anything, or
Oh,
is that
they
gonna be
responded,
something that's
okay.
just exclusively on the gauntlet?
I think the idea of adding leaderboards to other types of content over time makes sense. Could be pretty fun, But right now, I really want to see how the pit plays on its own. The
Understandable.
trials feature and challenge ladder. We really want that to be a place where players can, or the gauntlet rather, it's a place where we really want players to be able to like go and compete in a very fixed environment, a very like extremely fair environment, which is like what we really prioritize as part of the release. The pit is pretty variable run to run, so that makes it a little more complicated. It doesn't mean that we would never add it. I think that there's a clear indicator that it'd be pretty fun to have this slightly looser leaderboard associated with a feature like this.
Yeah.
But we're going to see how things play out, and we'll be thinking about how we can add more competitive features like that.
They got
to
their
the game over
priorities in the
time.
right place.
Question from Elro here. I didn't pronounce that right, but
Yeah, like Alex said, I like
when
knowing where I
Elro
stand
here, I think
against
that is
others.
actually-
That's
yeah.
good.
nailed it.
It's like an elven name right now.
Since not everyone actually experienced PTR, because PTR itself was on PC Battle.net, but they were asking when tempering, can you keep previous roles?
Can you keep previous roles?
Like the enchanting system.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, currently right now we don't have the functionality to let you keep the roll. Right now, if you're going to commit to re-rolling, you're going to lose that
You're
previous
committing
one.
to rolling.
Yeah, it's sort of like the blacksmith is hammering on that item and unlocking different
could be
aspects
rough.
of the weapon you sort
It
of
was
lose
during
and previously
PTR.
had.
I was
But
like,
we're
now
open to
I can't go
feedback, right? It's
back, and that was a
completely new
little scary.
feature. Really
Please
want to hear
let
how
us
it's playing,
re-roll,
and then
guys.
ultimately
Please,
what we
it's
want is a
quality
fun
of
crafting feature. So if,
I don't want to be punished.
Yeah,
for
let us
it.
keep
We'll
our
take two
previous
more,
role.
and one is from Matt LOL. Is
Yeah, they
gonna
need to
allow
do
changes
that.
for the skills?
That's gonna
the
that'll
skill
be a
type, like
mess.
maybe lightning.
That will be a
hydras,
mess.
Or
Don't do
maybe
that. Don't do
changes
that,
to
guys.
Blizzard where
Bad
it's like
idea.
fire or something like
Oh,
that.
come on,
cool.
Colin. You
Honestly,
know better.
anything an Apex can do.
yeah.
It is open season of things we could potentially do in the future. Yeah, not in season 4, but possibly in the future.
Awesome. This is actually from
There's a lot of space to grow.
There is
Utility is a category that we can do. There's a
we
lot of
need to
space
hit
to do some
utility.
interesting things potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions in here about like additional character customization options and stuff like that coming in the future. It is like something that the team is always looking at, adding additional things for players to have more choice of what they want to do, especially as they're creating characters, and of course being able to obtain those, like even just some things in season 4 of being able to get additional, cosmetic things for your mount and everything like that is something that the team is most definitely looking at.
Yeah, we care about this a great deal. I think one thing that's very interesting about Diablo 4, or a problem that we have that's very specific, right, is there are actually quite a few cosmetics for players to earn out on bosses and things, like throughout the game. Like there's lots of things for players to collect cosmetically in the game. But it's really hard to know that drops off that thing in Diablo 4. Like you can go and you could fight a world boss 50 times and not have a drop occur for you, right? Like then eventually you get your special horse. You're like, oh, okay, it is here, but you have no idea. So it's kind of like it's harder to know exactly where to grind. We're actually talking about that a bit on the dev side to see if like there's more ways we can kind of like make it clear where certain things can be found, which I think could be really fun.
Yeah.
But I think that there's work we can do there, and also there's still work we can do about just trying to get more cool looks into the game. So we've been talking a lot more with the various teams inside Diablo 4, and there's a broad agreement we want to bring more cool stuff to you guys, and more cool stuff for players to find and pick up and equip and feel like it was really exciting to get that thing. One thing we're doing like already is as we develop more uniques, we're trying to make sure that we have like more unique appearances to go with all of them. We have like a lot of really fun ideas. We have to constantly like wrestle with like, all right, we only have like this X many swords, but like we have like this many ideas for swords, and we want to like try to get this in the game. We want to wait till we have the artwork for a sword. We usually try to make sure that we've got a fun toy to immediately give you. But we're going to make sure we're trying to get more of that stuff in game as well. So there's just even more artwork to the unique system for players to collect.
Awesome. So that's all the time we got right here for today. We went over all the changes, or not actually. There's even more changes. There's actually more changes in the patch notes. We can't go through every single line in the patch notes over a stream, so you guys can actually check out the patch notes. Those will be available on Diablo4.com. We always have those listed on our specific patch notes page, and those will be live immediately after this stream. Season 4 Loot Reborn starts on May 14th. This is across all platforms. It's on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and of course, if you're an Xbox and PC Game Pass user, you can also play Diablo 4 now.
It's like 12 days from now.
Or
I want to have a cookout.
So,
like, I want to have a live
lots of opportunities to play, and of course, Steam. Can't forget Steam. Steam is also on there.
Like
for PC.
hot dogs and stuff.
That is also a platform. We're everywhere.
Any other platforms you want to shout
God, I
out?
would love to do
we're
that.
everywhere.
It'd be so freaking cool.
Just everywhere. But again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. We're looking forward to you guys jumping into Season 4 Loot Reborn. Yeah, we'll see you guys in game. And thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Aw, this was awesome. Good. Well, this will be uploaded to YouTube, and we can look at it from there. But I'm going to take a real quick break. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and leaving feedback. This was awesome. Cannot wait for Season 4. 14.
Yeah,
All right.
that was incredible. That was the best
I
campfire yet.